All right. It is a
Can't
bonus
make this shit
episode
up.
of You Can't Make This Shit Up. We are live. Joel Hawksley, Kellen Clark, and David Washington, your hosts for this live reaction podcast of the GOP presidential debate. The first one, where we have a host of characters except for the main character, Donald J. Trump.
That's
How goes
because
it,
Donald.
gentlemen?
That's because Donald Trump has decided to pre-record on another on X, and that would be broadcast at the same time. However, he will be turning himself into the authorities in Georgia tomorrow. So it will be interesting how these candidates tackle this this very tightrope between being not anti-Trump, be supportive of Trump, but also to be their own person. So it's going to be really, really interesting how this works. So I'm excited. Several candidates, they're in order of where they poll right now. It's nice to see our governor in first. It surprises Vivek Ramsaway, however you say his name.
Ramaswamy.
Ramaswamy. He's very attractive to Republicans right now. But he's sitting there in second. Then you have the vice president, and you have Nikki Haley, and then Scott and Christie. Uh, they're about to start this thing. It looks like I see it in the background. So I don't know. I have to control the volume on that, I assume. So anybody say anything before? You got like 2 minutes.
What you got, Kellen?
What do I got? Well, what I want to happen, though it probably won't happen, would be that timid old Mike Pence finally snaps. That's all I want to happen. It won't, but I think a lot of eyes will be on Ramaswamy. We've seen him gain far more attention than you could have ever expected, especially from more established figures like DeSantis, Pence, Haley. Um, so I'm very excited to see that. I'm hoping Mike Pence goes more definitive with his answers. He's been giving a lot of non-answers lately. I don't think we're gonna get more than non-answers, but holding out for it. What about you, David?
I I think the vast majority of the attendees will be supporting Trump. They'll be jockeying for his vice presidential pick. I believe that Hutchison and Christie will go on the attack on Trump since they're not big fans of Trump. But right now, for the most part, folks are positioning themselves for the number two spot. Um, DeSantis is going to have to come across as likable. Um, that's going to be hard. That's going to be a hard ask, I think. But then again, not too many people are paying attention, depending on what the reaction is to Trump's pre-recorded video, and whether there are more viewers there than at the debate will determine pretty much the fate of all of the hopefuls on the stage.
Hey, we all know that big announcements on Twitter have only gone well recently for these candidates. So
Oh yeah, I was just going to say his whole bragging rights will be, at least my
I
appearance
got
on
more
X.
than donut.
You could at least understand what I was saying. So
Mhm.
it looks like we're being brought into the hall. They just sang the national anthem, and listen, they look good, and let's get in there. Let's hear what they have to say.
Let's go.
Brett and Martha take it from here. Good night.
Some call it the heartland. Others flyover country. But for the 2024 presidential hopefuls, the Midwest is the place to land. Here, there's
Yes.
one battleground that may be harder to win than ever. Wisconsin. A state known for its beer and cheese, gridiron and grit, and also its razor-thin elections. In 2016, Republicans narrowly flipped the Badger State red for the first time since Ronald Reagan.
Whoop.
But it was back to blue by 2020.
Ooh.
That
Whoop,
election
whoop.
came during an unprecedented year. The country was rife with tension. In the suburbs of Milwaukee, the division seemed deeper than ever. But that was just the beginning.
Oh,
2 years later, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down Roe versus Wade, leaving the legality of abortion up to the states. In Wisconsin, that meant a nearly total ban.
woo!
That issue drove Democrats to the polls this year. Now, that new thin liberal majority on the court could have that abortion issue before it again, just as the race for the White House accelerates. Tonight, the Republican candidates will face off at the home of the Bucks and the Marquette Golden Eagles, hoping to return next July
Marquette?
to this city on the shore of Lake Michigan to
Hey,
accept the
Sheboygan.
Republican nomination at their party's national convention.
Yes. I'll always say that the Fox does a really good job with their graphics and their entrances. That was very impressive.
I'll always
I'll give
respect them
that-
for their graphics.
I'll give them an 8 on
Welcome to the first debate
entertainment so
of the
far.
2024 presidential campaign.
What do you give him
live
for-
at Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee.
That's it, yeah.
The voiceover could have been a little bit more Midwestern.
No, that was Britt Hume. Don't go there. I like
On
it.
our debate stage tonight.
Here is-
They are here to lay out their vision for America, the battle as they battle for the GOP nomination.
Haley's the only one who has a real good
I'm
outfit
Martha
on.
McCowell.
And I'm Brett
Who's
Baird.
that?
This is the
Haley,
very
she's
same
got the right
stage
outfit.
on which
Yeah.
the Republican choice for president will accept the party's nomination next summer. The 8 contenders are positioned by the order they sit in the polls, with the highest polling candidates in the middle standing center stage. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
Duncan DeSantis.
He's sanctimonious as he was called. I'm sorry, I don't read into that.
Former Vice President Mike Pence.
All right, where's Mother?
Governor Nikki Haley.
Woo!
Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie.
Ooh.
Yay?
Tim Scott.
Woo!
Former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson.
I like
And
Asa.
North Dakota
He has a
Governor
smile.
Doug Burgum.
I don't know who the hell
Who
he
is that?
He's a guy with a lot of money that
So
comes to
tonight,
stage.
we'll ask the questions, and then candidates get 1 minute to answer. If someone is singled out, you get 30 seconds to respond. And when the time runs out, we all will hear this.
Oh,
Very pleasant.
it's like going to
So
game show.
tonight, these candidates have a big opportunity to break out of the pack and to explain why they are best prepared to be the Republican choice for president. At a time when the likely Democrat nominee, President Joe Biden, is working to convince the country that with Bidenomics, things are looking up.
They call my plan Bidenomics. I'm not sure they meant it in a totally complimentary way at the time. But guess what? It's working.
Is it?
What a goofball.
More than 65% of Americans say the country is headed in the wrong direction. And here's the reality for some voters we talked to here in Wisconsin this week.
We have noticed a dramatic increase in prices at the grocery store just across the board.
Gas is high and food is high. A lot of people's out here homeless because they can't buy food.
It's tough when you got mortgage rates at 7-8% versus 2 to 3. It's just you can't afford the house anymore.
It's inflation.
What?
Is ridiculous. It's killing
I
us out
bought
here.
both my houses at 7%.
We sit here tonight. The number one song on the Billboard
Americans
chart
are
is
David,
called
you can't afford your house now.
North of
Gotta give it
Richmond.
up.
Yeah, but your house is
Never
7%.
Farmville,
Your house is
Virginia,
7%
named
was
Oliver
not
Anthony.
the prices of
His
today.
lyrics speak of alienation, of deep frustration with the state of government and of this country. Washington, D.C. is about 100 miles north of Richmond.
These rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control. Wanna know what you think.
Now we're getting to finally the important issues.
You know, wanna know that you do. Your dollar ain't shit, and it's taxed to no end.
Oh shit, I like this song.
This is the Joel song.
This?
This is my song.
Are you serious?
So, Governor DeSantis,
Can we get
why is this song striking such a nerve in this country right now? What do you think it means?
Our country is in decline. This decline is not inevitable. It's a choice. We need to send Joe Biden back to his basement and reverse American decline. And it starts with understanding we must reverse Bidenomics so that middle-class families have a chance to succeed again. We cannot succeed as a country if you are working hard and you can't afford groceries, a car, or a new home, while Hunter Biden can make hundreds of thousands of dollars on lousy paintings. That is wrong. We also cannot succeed when the Congress spends trillions and trillions of dollars. Those rich men north of Richmond have put us in this situation. And finally, we need to lower your gas prices. We're going to open up all energy production. We will be energy dominant again in this country.
That was a good
I
opening.
showed it could be done in the state of Florida. I pledge to you as your president, we will get the job done, and I will not let you down.
That was good. That was actually good.
But wasn't he a congressman?
Governor Christie, do you agree with Governor DeSantis just said there? And why would you be better on the economy than him?
Well, look, I do agree predominantly with what Governor DeSantis just laid out. I think that if you asked every one of us up here, that we would agree predominantly with what he just laid out. Here's the difference. The difference is that we're going to have to work and make sure that we sell these ideas and be able to put ourselves in a position where we get a majority of the vote, not only by winning the Congress and the Senate in 24, but also by having someone who's had the experience of doing it. Now, I was elected as a conservative Republican in a blue state with 61% of the vote, with a Democratic legislature against me the entire time. And we still, through hard, strong decision-making, brought them around to our point of view. We cut taxes in New Jersey. We cut debt in New Jersey. We made sure that each and every time we were confronted with bad Democratic ideas, we stood and stopped them. And when there were good ideas, we brought people together to make progress going forward.
You must have taken my class.
Truth and accountability are the things we need to do to fight waste. And I'd say the last thing is this, Brett. We cannot sit by any longer and allow the kind of spending that's going on in Washington, because every dollar they spend is a dollar that these people are not allowed to spend on their children and their grandchildren. It's robbing our country, and it's wrong.
Well, Governor, let me just follow up very quickly. New Jersey, when you were governor, had the second lowest credit rating in the nation after Illinois, and it was downgraded 11 times.
Ouch. Yeah, and that's what happens when you inherit a blue state that has done that. But when you look at what we did on debt, Brett, in that state, we cut debt in that state, debt that had been left to us by 3 Democratic gubernatorial predecessors of mine who ran up that debt tremendously. And what you also saw us do was to cut the unemployment rate in half. It was over 10% when I became governor in 2010. What we also did was cut pension payments to public employees to make sure that taxpayers were not being soaked by a public employee union system that was killing the taxpayer.
Thank you, Governor.
And they're also taxpayers.
Senator Scott, excuse me. The song also goes after welfare programs. As a senator, now President Biden argued for freezing federal spending. This was back in the 80s, and dealing with sacred cows. He does not talk about that anymore. You have been a senator, though, for 10 years. So what have you done to rein in the increasing size of government?
Well, thank you for the question. Over the last several years, I've had an opportunity to vote against spending package after spending package after spending package. What we also need to understand is that Joe Biden's Bidenomics has led to the loss of $10,000 of spending power for the average family. When you see 16% inflation, your gas is up 40%, Your food is up 20%. Your electricity is up 20%. We can stop that by turning the spigot off in Washington, sending the money back to the states, and allowing the decisions to be made at their own houses. I helped write the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017. We cut taxes for a single mom like the one that raised me by 70%, for dual households by 60%, returning to the average family $4,000. If you don't send it to Washington, we can't spend it. That's good news for the American people.
Okay, but just to follow up, you did, during the Trump administration, you approved 4.4 trillion, 4.1 trillion, 1.7 trillion over the course of that administration. That's a lot of money.
There's no doubt that during the Trump administration, when we were dealing with the COVID virus, we spent more money. But here's what happened at the end of our time in the majority. We had low unemployment, record low unemployment, 3.5% for the majority of the population, 70-year low for women. African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians had an all-time low, but our inflation was at 2%. Under Joe Biden, we've seen the exact opposite. We've seen inflation explode, which led to 12 Federal Reserve increases that's devastating home buyers today.
Because of all
Mr.
the money
Ramaswamy,
you put into the system.
If I may,
hold on one second.
our
We're going
administration,
to.
so I don't know if I get a
He
chance
didn't-
to respond.
he didn't mention you specifically.
Michael.
Mr.
Michael.
Vice President, Mr. Ramaswamy, listening to all of this, why should voters choose you over more experienced politicians on this stage? You're basically, a blank slate for people. You're 38 years old. You've said that you only voted in 2 presidential elections before this moment, this political race.
It's only been
So
25.
first, let me just address the question that is on everybody's mind at home tonight. Who the heck is this skinny guy with a funny last name, and what the heck is he doing in the middle of this debate stage? I'll tell you, I'm not a politician, Brett. You're right about that. I'm an entrepreneur. My parents came to this country with no money 40 years ago. I have gone on to found multi-billion-dollar companies. I did it while marrying my wife, Apoorva, raising our 2 sons, following our faith in God. That is the American dream. And I am genuinely worried that that American dream will not exist for our 2 sons and their generation unless we do something about it. And I do think Brett is going to take an outsider, because for a long time, we have professional politicians in the Republican Party who have been running from something. Now is our moment to start running to something, to our vision of what it means to be an
Listen to that audience.
If you have a broken car, you don't turn over the keys to the people who broke it again. You hand it over to a new generation to actually fix the problem. That's why I'm in this race, and we're just getting warmed up.
Woo!
Good
Why are you
answer.
better positioned to turn around this economy that we've heard all of these
Kellen.
people talking about tonight than Mr. Ramaswamy, who is a successful entrepreneur nationally right now? He's beating you in the polls.
Well, I don't care about polls. What I care about the fact is that no one is telling the American people the truth. The truth is that Biden didn't do this to us. Our Republicans did this to us too. When they passed that $2.2 trillion COVID stimulus bill, they left us with 90 million people on Medicaid, 42 million people on food stamps. No one has told you how to fix it. I'll tell you how to fix it. They need to stop the spending. They need to stop the borrowing. They need to eliminate the earmarks that the Republicans brought back in. And they need to make sure they understand these are taxpayer dollars. It's not their dollars. And while they're all saying this, you have Ron DeSantis, you've got Tim Scott, you've got Mike Pence. They all voted to raise the debt. And Donald Trump added $8 trillion to our debt. And our kids are never going to forgive us for this. And so at the end of the day, you look at the 2024 budget, Republicans asked for $7.4 billion in earmarks. Democrats asked for $2.8 billion. So you tell me who are the big spenders. I think it's time for an accountant in the White House.
Oh, I love it. Love it.
That was it.
54% of voters say the cost of groceries is a, quote, major problem for them.
Right.
You blame the Biden administration spending for that increase. But as vice president, your administration spent more than any prior, $7.8 trillion added to the national debt, $3.5 trillion of that before COVID. So does that mean that you're part of the spending problem?
Well, first off, thanks for the question. Thanks for letting me respond to a reference to our administration's record. I'm incredibly proud of the record of the Trump-Pence administration. I mean, in
4 short years, we rebuilt our military. We revived our economy. We unleashed American energy. And we appointed 3 conservatives to the Supreme Court that gave the American people a new beginning for the right to life. Now, Martha, you asked earlier who's the most best prepared for this job. And I must tell you, with all due respect to all of my friends on the stage, and even to one that's probably looking on, I think unquestionably I am the best prepared, the most tested, the most qualified and proven conservative in this race. I was a leader in the Congress of the United States. I led Indiana where we balanced budgets and had a AAA bond rating when I was governor. And as vice president of the United States, we spent funding to backfill on the military cuts of the Obama administration. And then we were there in the worst pandemic in 100 years. All that being said, I was the first person in this race to say that we've got to deal with the long-term national debt issues. You got people on this stage that won't even talk about issues like Social Security and Medicare. I mean, Vivek, you recently said a president can't do everything. Well, I got news for you, Vivek. I've been in the hallway. I've been in the West Wing. A president of the United States has to confront every crisis facing America. I will put our nation back on the path to growth and prosperity and restore fiscal responsibility, just as I did in Congress and as governor,
Mr. Vice President,
and when I was vice president.
But yeah, I mean,
hold on. You were named earlier. I'm going to get Vivek first.
We'll get to both of
Yeah, this isn't that complicated, guys. Unlock American energy. Drill, frack, burn coal, embrace nuclear. Put people back to work by no longer paying them more to stay at home. Reform the U.S. Fed, stabilize the U.S. dollar, and go to war. The only war that I will declare as U.S. president will be the war on the federal administrative state that is the source of those toxic regulations acting like a wet blanket on the economy. So I'm not sure I exactly understood Mike Pence's comment, but I'll let you all parse that out. For me, it's pretty simple. That's something a U.S. president can do with focus, and I'll deliver on it.
Well, let me explain it to you. Vivek, if I can. I'll go slower this time.
I sometimes struggle with the reading
I was
No,
a House conservative
Mike.
leader before it
Now
was
you
cool.
want to show some balls.
I actually pushed a Deficit Reduction Act. That was the last time we actually reduced
Mike, you're
the
part of the
national
problem.
debt in
Shut
the
the
United
fuck up.
States when I was the leader of House conservatives. I balanced budgets and cut taxes when I was governor. I mean, look, Joe Biden has weakened this country at home and abroad. Now is not the time for on-the-job training. We don't need to bring in a rookie. We don't need to bring in people without experience.
Food.
It's 30 seconds when you have a rebuttal, okay? And you are up, Governor DeSantis.
So here's the thing. Why are we in this mess? Part of it, and a major reason, is because how this federal government handled COVID-19 by locking down this economy. It was a mistake. It should have never happened. And in Florida,
Ask the 90,000 people in Florida who died because of COVID.
And I can tell you this, as your president, I will never let the deep state bureaucrats lock you down. You don't take somebody like Fauci and coddle him. You bring Fauci in, you sit him down, and you say, Anthony, you are fired.
Woo! But Anthony's not there anymore. You dumbass.
We're going to
I just want to respond to Mike for 1 second because he invoked me back. Listen, now that everybody's gotten their memorized, pre-prepared slogans out of the way, we can actually have a real discussion now. The reality and the fact of the matter is...
Was that one of yours?
Not really, Mike, actually. We're just going to have some fun tonight. And the reality is, you have a bunch of people, professional politicians, super PAC puppets, following slogans handed over to them by their 400-page super PACs last week. The real choice we face in this primary is this. Do you want a super PAC puppet, or do you want a patriot who speaks the truth? Do you want incremental reform, which is what you're hearing about, or do you want revolution?
Okay.
And I stand on the side of the American Revolution.
We're going to take control back here.
We need everyone to have a moment on the economy.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Can I address the
there are
COVID
two people
issue
who
that
have
the governor
not.
brought up?
We're going to get back to that. We are. There are two people who we have not heard from yet. So let's hear from Governor Burgum and then from Governor Hutchinson on the economy, sir.
Well, great. Thank you, Martha. And of
Who
course,
is this
I'm
guy?
from a town of 300 people. It's a big deal to make it on this stage with all these folks. But
Who are you?
when they were all wishing me well, And I think I took them a little too literally when they said, go to Milwaukee and break a leg. But I do want to say on this, we're missing something. We can't just talk about the Biden economy because the economy, energy, and national security are all tied together. Of course, we're paying too much for our energy in our state, in our country right now. But part of the reason why is because of the Biden policies on energy. We've got a plan right now, the $1.2 trillion of Green New Deal spending buried in the Inflation Creation Act is something that is just subsidizing China. If we're going to stop buying oil from the Middle East and start buying batteries from China, we're just trading OPEC for Sinopec. And then belatedly, the Biden administration says, no, we're going to put sanctions on Russian oil. Well, we put sanctions on Russian oil. Well, then it's 20% off. Who's buying it? China. So if you buy a battery in this country, you buy a solar panel, it's being produced in a plant in China powered by coal, or it's being powered by oil and gas at 20% off. And every farmer in this country would like to buy diesel at 20% off, just like they're buying it in China.
Governor Hutchinson, quickly.
Thank you, Grant. Delighted to be here tonight. And let me just tell you that I'm a pro-life governor from a conservative state that have a conservative record in which I lowered taxes in Arkansas as governor. I created a $2 billion surplus that I passed over to my successor, and I made sure that we shrunk the size of government. We have 14% fewer state employees in Arkansas after I left government than when I took over as governor 8 years ago. I tell that because that's what we need in Washington, D.C. We need somebody who can actually constrain the growth of the federal government, that can actually
Arkansas has the economy of the Philippines.
Our federal non-defense workforce. That's a specific pledge to make that attacks the administrative state. And let me applaud some of the business partners that are here that have had success in business. But let me tell you, I've been a federal prosecutor. I've served our country in terms of being head of the DEA, in Homeland Security, in times of crisis. And while I think that that's experience that is important for the future of our country, to be the president of the United States that can lead with positive solutions and be held accountable.
Thank you. We have a lot of topics to get to, and I promise we're going to get to everyone if we play within the rules. Okay, next topic. More than 1,000 people are still unaccounted for in Maui after the deadliest U.S. wildfire in more than a century. Hawaii's governor and White House officials said that climate change amplified the cost of human error.
And a tropical storm hit California for the first time in 84 years. The ocean hit 101 degrees off the coast of Florida. And in the last month, the heat wave in the Southwest broke records nearly 50 years old.
So Alexander Diaz from Young America's Foundation has a question for you.
Polls consistently show that young people's #1 issue is climate change. How will you, as both President of the United States and leader of the Republican Party, calm their fears that the Republican Party doesn't care about climate change?
So we want to start on this with a show of hands. Do you believe in human behavior is causing climate change? Raise your hand if you do.
Well, look, we're not school children. Let's have the debate. I mean, I'm happy to take it to start. Alexander,
so do you want to raise your hand or not?
I think we already know
Ron's So let me just say to Alexander this. First of all, one of the reasons our country's decline is because of the way the corporate media treats Republicans versus Democrats. Biden was on the beach while those people were suffering. He was asked about it. He said no comment. Are you kidding me? As somebody that's handled disasters in Florida, you got to be activated. You got to be there. You got to be present. You got to be helping people who are doing this. And here's the deal.
So is that a yes? Or is that a yes? Is that a hand raise?
You do not.
I think it was a hand raise for him, and it's my hands are in my pockets.
No, I didn't raise a hand.
Let us be honest as Republicans. I'm the only person on the stage who isn't bought and paid for, so I can say this. The climate change agenda is a hoax.
Now we're getting to fun land now. Okay.
And the reality is, the anti-carbon agenda is the wet blanket on our economy. And so the reality is, more people are dying of bad climate change policies than they are of actual climate change.
Governor Haley, are you bought and paid for?
Hold on.
Heat index is 121 here in Florida.
Hold on.
I've had enough already tonight of a guy who sounds like ChatGPT standing up here. And the last person in one of these debates, Brett, who stood in the middle of the stage and said, "What's a skinny guy with an odd last name doing up here?" was Barack Obama, and I'm afraid we're dealing with the same type of amateur standing on stage tonight.
And you'll help elect me just like you did to Obama, too.
Hold on. Governor Haley, would you like to respond?
I like.
Are you
So,
bought and
Brett,
paid
what I
for?
would like to say is the fact that I think this is exactly why Margaret Thatcher said, if you want something said, ask a man. If you want something done, ask a woman.
She pulled the card out.
First of all, we do care about clean air, clean water. We want to see that taken care of, but there's a right way to do it. And the right way to do it is, first of all, yes, is climate change real? Yes, it is. But if you want to go and really change the environment, then we need to start telling China and India that they have to lower their emissions. That's where our problem is. And these green subsidies that Biden has put in, all he's done is help China, because he doesn't understand all these electric vehicles that he's done, what that does. Half of the batteries for electric vehicles are made in China. And so that's not helping the environment. You're putting money in China's pocket, and Biden did that. So first of all, I think we need to acknowledge the truth, which is these subsidies are not working. We also need to take on the international world and say, okay, India and China, you've got to stop polluting. And that's when we'll start to deal with
Senator
climate.
Scott, are you bought and paid for?
Absolutely.
Are you bought and paid for?
I'm sorry.
Are you bought and paid for?
Absolutely not. I mean, here's what the American
He said
people
absolutely.
deserve. Debate about the
Tried to
issues
say
that
absolutely
affect their
not, but he
lives.
was interrupted. So
Going back and
You're giving
forth
it
being
20
childish is not helpful to the American people to decide on the next leader of our country. Number one, wait a second. And number two, as a kid who grew up in a single-parent household mired in poverty, I wondered, was the American dream real for kids
good
who were
Lord.
devastated by poverty, devastated by the challenges of life? I came to the conclusion that America can do for anyone what she's done for me if we focus on restoring hope, creating opportunities, and protecting America. If we want the environment to be better, and we all do, the best thing to do is to bring our jobs home from China. If we create 10 million new jobs
Ladies
in
and
my Made in
gentlemen,
America plan, we
China.
will have a better economy and a better environment. Let me tell you why I say that, Brett. America,
Do it quickly.
America has cut. I'm a Southern boy. I talk slow. So America
Oh,
Thanks, Jim.
America has cut our carbon footprint in half in the last 25 years. The places where they are continuing to increase: Africa, 950 million people. India, over 1 billion. China, over 1 billion. Why would we put ourselves at a disadvantage, devastating our own economy? Let's bring our jobs home.
We have a lot of different topics to get to.
Yeah, we do. We thank you all. Thank you, Senator Scott. So coming up next, the candidates will weigh in on what could be a defining issue in the 2024 campaign. The first Republican debate continues moments away.
Yippee!
Okay, gentlemen. What say you? Who
As
was
a
the most
resident,
impressive?
as a resident Republican, take it away, Joel.
Oh, I should be last because this has been the
Very
most
fun.
fun.
Then
It's been the
then-
most
then-
fun I've had in a long time.
You know what? This was more entertaining than I was expecting. I already forgot his name. North Dakota guy definitely didn't make a strong impression.
Berman?
Yeah, that was a very weak impression. It seems the gang up on Ramaswamy gang seems to be going on.
And you know why?
Gee, I wonder why. It's a lot of reasons.
This is the Donald Trump type thing. Like, they're so scared because they only know one thing. They know how the government works, and they know bureaucracy. And somebody on the outside going to get in, it drives them crazy. However, I think that the one who's handled themselves the best at this point, if not, in the center of the stage, would definitely be Nikki. Nikki is holding her own. She is standing up, and again, I say she has more balls than most of the men.
Yeah, and though his opener was trash, Christie was doing better than he normally does. Not that that is a super high bar, but still, he's up there. Haley is definitely making a strong impression. DeSantis hasn't really been much in the debating. He's mostly just been. It comes across as he's reading lines.
Well, he's Vivek said.
Yeah, like Ramaswamy said.
Yeah, he clearly said, now that we've done all our points. No, DeSantis was well rehearsed, right out the box.
Very well versed.
Hit exactly what he was supposed to, but where does his gas? Is his gas going to be gone? Right?
Yeah.
Because we already know his rule. We already saw his super PAC playbook, right? What they wanted him to do. Has he stuck to it? Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's why they can have something like, them saying you're buttons, so you're all buttons.
Yeah.
So David, take it away, because now you're the Democrat, and I think you're having a lot of fun with this. I think.
Oh, I am. I mean, to see DeSantis, come off with the same tired lines, so like, give me something fresh. I'm ready to write down every time he says woke. And it's kind of disingenuous when he talked about opening up Florida, during COVID. Yeah, 90,000 Floridians died because of COVID. Um, it was selfish, and it was irresponsible. And he would even own up to the fact if he got the vaccine or not. Just say you did. You did. Period. Just do it. And then, he said, Florida is, great because our economy is this, and that. No, we're paying nearly $4 in gas. Property insurance is out of the, is skyrocketing. The price of food, the price of this, the price of that. Florida is no better than any other, city or any other state. I'm sorry. Um, Vivek, he's making a good point. He's the outsider, and these are individuals who are bought and paid for the most part. Um, and
One
Vivek,
thing
I mean, he's very clear. He's been very clear where he stands um, on certain things. It's either this or that. Period. There's no gray area. We need to do this or we need to do that. I appreciate that. I like to hear more from Mike Pence, because he's part of the problem, and I want to see him dig a hole.
Is one I'm excited to see.
In this country. And even in red states, there are more swing state referendums that are coming up as we head into the elections as well on this. So, Governor Haley, what do you say to your party and to your state, which today confirmed a 6-week abortion law as well, especially the impact on women suburban voters across this country?
Thank you, Martha. I am unapologetically pro-life, not because the Republican Party tells me to be, but because my husband was adopted and I had trouble having both of my children. So I'm surrounded by blessings. Having said that, we need to stop demonizing this issue. This is talking about the fact that unelected justices didn't need to decide something this personal, because it's personal for every woman and man. Now it's been put in the hands of the people. That's great. When it comes to a federal ban, let's be honest with the American people and say it will take 60 Senate votes. It will take a majority of the House. So in order to do that, let's find consensus. Can't we all agree that we should ban late-term abortions? Can't we all
Define
agree
late term.
we encourage
Exactly.
adoption?
Thank you.
Can't we all agree that doctors and nurses who don't believe in abortion shouldn't have to perform them? Can't we all agree that contraception
Get
should
out of
be
their profession.
available? And can't we all agree
Well, we
that
can't
we
agree
are
on one
not going to
thing.
put a woman in jail or give her the death penalty if she gets an abortion? Let's treat this like a respectful issue that it is, and humanize the situation and stop demonizing the situation.
Well, you just lost, Nikki. You just lost, Nikki.
You were supposed to say throw him in jail, Nikki.
Exactly.
Abortion ban in Florida.
All right, let's hear what
The
this
biggest
this
financial
gentleman
argument
has to
is
say.
that you need to, quote, shift to get moderates or you will lose. What do you say to him and others who say politically that is a tough thing to sell nationally?
Well, I would say we sold the biggest election landslide victory in the history of the Republican Party in the state of Florida in 2022. That's what I did. We can win. But
Correlation is
look,
causation, Ron.
you got to do what you think is right.
Thank
I
you, Kellen.
believe in a culture of life. I was proud to sign the heartbeat bill. I remember one of the most impactful moments of my life was when I heard the heartbeat of my oldest daughter in my wife's womb, and then saw the sonograms of all three of my kids. What the Democrats are trying to do on this issue is wrong, to allow abortion all the way up to the moment of birth. I know a lady
No, they
in Florida
don't, you
named Jenny.
jackass.
She
No, that's
survived
true.
multiple
That's not
abortion
true.
attempts. She was left
Later.
discarded in a pan. Fortunately, her grandmother saved her and brought her to a different hospital. We're better than what the Democrats are selling. We are
Answer the
not going to
damn
allow
question,
abortion
Ron.
all the way up till birth, and we will hold them accountable for their extremism.
But just to be clear, Governor, would you sign a 6-week ban federally?
I'm going to stand on the side of life. Look, I understand Wisconsin is going to do it different than Texas. I
No,
understand
federal
Iowa and
ban,
New Hampshire to do
jackass.
different. But
And that's
I
why
will
saying no without
support
saying
the
no.
cause of life as governor and as president.
We
Vice
must
President
have
Pence, you're shaking your
We must
head.
have a national.
Hold on, Senator. Vice President Pence. You're shaking your head.
Well, look, I'm not new to this cause. After I gave my life to Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, I opened up the book and I read.
Oh, Lord, have
Before I
mercy.
Oh boy, here he goes.
Yeah, here we go.
See, I sit before you
I
life
have
and
too,
death.
Mike, but I'll
Thus
answer
these
the
curses
question.
now choose life. And I knew from that moment on, the cause of life had to be my cause. And I've been a champion for life in the Congress, a champion for life as governor and as vice president. And to be honest with you, Nikki, you're my friend, but consensus is the opposite of leadership. When the Supreme Court returned this question to the American people, they didn't just send it to the states only. It's not a states only issue, it's a moral issue. And I promise you, as President of the United States, the American people will have a champion for life in the Oval Office. Can't we have a minimum standard in every state in the nation that says when a baby is capable of feeling
No better than having
pain,
Roe v.
an
Wade.
abortion cannot be
Thank you.
allowed? A
That's
15-week ban
exactly
is an
what he's
idea whose
saying.
time has come. It's supported by 70%
A minimum standard.
but it's
Roe
going
v.
to take
Wade.
apologetic leadership that stands on principle and expresses
Somebody get Mother and get him off the stage.
pregnancies.
Yeah.
I'll do that as president of the United States.
Nobody is more pro-life than he is on this stage.
So first of all, I will say it is in the hands of the people, and that's where it should be. But when you're talking about a federal ban, be honest with the American people.
Yeah.
We haven't had 45 pro-life senators in over 100 years. So no Republican president can ban abortions any more than a Democrat president could ban all those state laws. Don't make women feel like they have to decide on this issue when you know we don't have 60 Senate votes in the House.
70% of the American people support legislation
But
to ban
70% of
abortion
the
after a
Senate
baby is
does
capable
not.
of experiencing
Oh, she's
Senate does not. You have to be honest with the American people.
Let's get Governor Bergman for one minute here. So,
Mike
but the
Pence at
Supreme
number
Court
3.
did overturn Roe v. Wade, and the result of that decision was that it went back to the states. So that's where it is right now. So, as I understand it, you are not in favor of a federal ban. What do you say about the states? There's about 5 of them, including New Jersey, I think a few others, that allow abortion up until the time of birth, though. If you were president, would you be able to abide that?
Well, first of all, I'm a pro-life governor of a very pro-life state. And this issue is, of course, very important. But I am on the record, and I stand behind that we should not have a federal abortion ban. We should not. And the reason why we shouldn't is very simple. It's the 10th Amendment in the Constitution. In the Constitution, which the states created the federal government, not the other way around, it says that there were certain duties allowed to the federal government delegated to them by the states. The rest are left to the states, comma, more importantly, or to the people. We need to get back to freedom and liberty for the people in this country. And we can't have Republicans who fight for 50 years for this great cause and to return it back to the states. And then the next day they turn around and go, no, the feds should do that, because the feds are stepping into people's lives. They're stepping into people's businesses. over and over. If we say that the Fed should be in on this one, where do we stop? I say that we follow the Constitution, and this is returned to the states. This is where it should
But
be.
Governor Burgum, you signed a 6-week ban. Time out. You signed a 6-week ban.
Yes, of course you
Governor
said, for
Burgum,
the
you
state.
signed a 6-week ban. So you're saying federally, it's all going to go to the states.
Yes, and what is going to work in
Obviously,
New
that's
York
what he
will never
said.
work in North Dakota,
Okay.
and vice versa. That's
Governor
why 50
Asa
states.
You want me to remind you there's a
This
tenth
is too
amendment
important of an
exists
issue
again.
that I have to address. First of all, the Supreme Court gave it back to the elected representatives, whether it's the states or whether it's the United States Congress.
That's
So there
right.
is authority, and that's why President Biden is pushing for a Democrat proposal, which is, in essence, abortion on demand through the term. So they have their extreme position at a national level. It's most likely going to be addressed in the states, but it's certainly fine for it to be addressed at the national level as well. Arkansas has the record of being the most pro-life state in the nation. I signed 30 pro-life pieces of legislation while I was governor. And every state can determine a different outcome here. And it is the most important issue for women and for the unborn child and for our country that we get this right. It's going to be a continued debate. Let's talk about it in terms of compassion, in terms of protecting the life, and also understanding how we have to enhance adoption services, how we have to enhance maternal care. Those things we've done in Arkansas and are
No, you
important
haven't.
for our nation's future.
There are a lot of issues that are very important.
Adoption's changing.
Expand Medicare
Senator, I'll
then.
let you
Thank you.
weigh in.
We cannot let states like California, New York, and Illinois have abortions on demand up until the day of birth. That is immoral. It is unethical. It is wrong. We must have a president of the United States who will advocate and fight for, at the minimum, a 15-week limit. I am 100% pro-life conservative. I have a 100% pro-life record. I got to tell you, though, we must fight for life. Our Declaration of Independence says our Creator gave us inalienable rights that include life. That is a list. That is an issue we must solve.
he
We
makes a
can't
good
leave
point.
it to Illinois. We can't leave it to Minnesota. We
Man,
can't
you
leave it to
Republicans
Illinois.
fight so
We
hard
must
for
solve that
an
issue
unborn
with a
child,
15-week limit
but
at a
then
minimum.
won't
Thanks,
support
Senator.
the child once that child is
What I would
born.
love is for
What are
someone
you
to
talking
ask
about?
Biden and
Welfare was
Kamala
put into
Harris, are
place
they
by
for
the
38
Republican
weeks? Are
Party.
I
they
didn't
for
say anything
39
about
weeks? Are they
welfare,
for 40
Jamal.
weeks?
I
Who's
didn't
going
say
to
anything
choose?
about
We need to
welfare.
take care of people
Another
to
issue
do
is
the best. We
America
just don't.
and the crime
just
crisis.
I didn't
that's
say anything
homelessness
about welfare.
crisis. American cities
transition
are
needs
in
to be there.
decline. People are moving
Talking about,
out as
you know,
homelessness, drugs, crime
funding
move
education
in.
appropriately.
There are problems accelerated. They did accelerate during the pandemic and are still rising, actually.
Proper health care.
Murders in Los Angeles, New York, Chicago,
Yeah,
all up
the best
30%
healthcare in the world.
between 2019 and 2022. Homelessness is up 11%, the largest jump in recorded history. Vice President Pence, a lot of this began
Good goal.
in the COVID era.
Very illegal in New York.
How much of what we're seeing happening around this country is a result of those COVID lockdowns?
Man.
And is your administration in part
We
to blame
Republicans
for
love to
how we
scare
got here?
Americans.
Well, I think what's most to
Crime,
blame is the Democrats been
homelessness.
talking about defunding the police for the last 5 years.
Oh,
And we ought to
Lord.
be funding law enforcement, particularly in our major cities, at unprecedented levels. I mean, it's extraordinary to think about the
Military
violence
states.
that's claiming innocent lives literally every week in every major city in this country.
Oh,
And yet
we lost Kellen.
Democrats and liberal prosecutors in major metropolitan areas continue to work out their fanciful agendas, to do bail reform and go easy. What we need is strong commitment to law enforcement. We need leadership in Washington, D.C. that'll marshal the resources of the states, marshal the resources of the American people. But let me also say it's about opportunity. I mean, a lot of people don't know that those Trump-Pence tax cuts that we got signed into law go away at the end of 2025 if we don't have a Republican president and a Republican House and a Republican Senate. When I'm president of the United States, we're actually going to cut taxes further. We're going to extend those tax cuts, and we're going to close the Federal Department of Education, block grant all that funding back
Oh
to the
Lord,
states
here
with
we
a
go.
growing economy and educational choice and law enforcement.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
will
yeah,
bring
yeah,
our
Mike.
cities back.
Governor Christie, another issue. This weekend here in Milwaukee, reports say there were 30 shootings, and a number of them including kids. Add that to the big increase in school shootings around the country. Democrats blame this crisis on easy access to guns. They also blame Republicans for blocking gun control legislation. What would President Christie do?
You know, I'm proud of the fact, Brett, that I'm the only person, along with Governor Hutchinson, up on this stage who's actually running United States Attorney's Office. I ran the 5th largest office in America in a state where there is significant urban crime. And the problem is not going to be solved by more money. The problem is that these prosecutors in these localities in the states are refusing to do their job and to arrest violent criminals. So what a President Christie
Wow,
would do
blame the
is appoint an
police.
attorney general who would instruct
Wow.
each of the 93 U.S. attorneys that they are to take over the prosecution of violent crime in every one of those cities that are failing to do so. We have plenty of room in the federal prisons to lock up these violent criminals and clean up what's going on
Lock up more
all
people.
across this country in these individual cities.
We got room for that.
What we need to make sure that each and every one of these criminals understand is that the laws apply to everybody. And when Hunter Biden fills out a fake application,
Who
a
is
false
Hunter
application
Biden?
for a gun
Don't go
permit,
there.
and then it's
It's
facing
just trouble.
10
It
years
is deflection.
mandatory minimum, which was mandated
Enough
by
of Hunter
legislation
Biden.
sponsored
No, it's
by
just
his
starting
father.
because you guys pushed
And
it
then
off for
you
so
have a
long.
Justice Department
What
that walks
topic?
away from those charges.
I know
We're
nothing
telling
about
people
this
that the
Hunter
law doesn't
Biden
apply to
shit.
everybody. And a
Do you
Christian
guys
because
have
you're not paying
another
attention.
he would go to
villain?
jail for 10 years.
What about
What, how did he get so
Ramaswamy?
prominent?
What does the President Ramaswamy do about guns?
So the reality is we have a crime wave in this country and we know how to fix it. The question is, do we actually have the spine to do it? The cops in the streets who are on the streets able to do their jobs without looking over their shoulder for getting sued. And we also have a mental health epidemic in this country. Just over the same period that we have closed mental health institutions, we have seen a spike in violent crime.
Thank
Do we have
you.
the spine to bring them back? I think we should. As president, I will.
Thank
It's not
you.
just drugging up people in those psychiatric institutions with Zoloft and Seroquel. It's a deeper
Thank
issue.
you.
I think faith-based approaches can play a role here too.
Thank you.
We're in the middle of a national identity crisis. And I say this as a member of my generation. The problem in our country right now, the reason we have that mental health epidemic is that people are so hungry for purpose and meaning at a
Thank
time
you.
when family, faith, patriotism, hard work have all disappeared. What we really need is a tonal reset from the top, saying that this is what it means to be an American. Yes, we will stand for the rule of law. Yes, we will close the southern border where criminals are coming in every day. And yes, we will back law enforcement because we remember who we really are. And that's also how we address that mental health epidemic in the next generation that is directly leading to violent crime
Can I
across
speak
this
on behalf
country.
of the American
DeSantis,
people
really
here?
quickly. Governor DeSantis.
We don't have an identity crisis. We're not looking for a new national identity. The American people are the most faith-filled, freedom-loving, idealistic, hardworking people the world has ever known. We just need government as good as our people.
Well, Mike, I think the difference is you might have some others like you may have on the stage. It's Morning in America speech. It is not Morning in America. We live in a dark moment, and we have to confront the fact that we're in an internal, sort of cold cultural civil
You
war.
are
And we have to
equating the
recognize
American
that
people with the failed government in Washington, D.C. We just need government as good as our people again.
So let me just finish addressing
And
that.
your
Again, because I
people,
know
your
that's
white
what it means.
people.
We need to shut down the
And
administration. That's actually how we transform.
Crime has been on the rise in Florida, Governor DeSantis.
Uh-oh.
How do you stop crime?
Well, actually, crime's at a 50-year low
Not
in
in-
Florida.
not in
We're
Miami.
happy with that. Well, the statewide.
Not in Miami. Get him.
City. That's a
These
municipality.
holdout
Get 'em.
cities, this is a symptom of America's decline. And one of the biggest reasons, because you have George Soros funding
Oh,
these
my
radical
God.
left-wing district attorneys. They get into office and they say they're not going to prosecute crimes they disagree with. The inmates start running the asylum. There's one guy in this entire country that's ever done anything about that. Me. When we had two of these district attorneys in Florida elected with Soros funding who said they wouldn't do their job, I removed them from their posts. They are gone. And as president, we are going to go after all of these people because they are hurting the quality of life and they are victimizing innocent people in every corner of this country. And it will stop when I get into office.
One more here before the break.
This dude's gonna go after state's attorneys,
Martha, I
the
just thought it was interesting. You
gays,
asked your question about the problems we're having in big
transgenders,
cities. No
black
one ever asked the question of what about
immigrants,
the crime wave in small towns?
migrants.
Because in a small town, neighbors help neighbors. People understand each other. If a farmer gets sick, everybody comes together and helps him get
Right,
the
in
crop
a
off.
small
There's
town.
accountability. There's
Thank you.
transparency. One thing that I think this country could use is
Most
somebody in the White
Americans
House that
live
understands small town
in
values
big
because
towns,
that's our road
dudes.
back to get this country on track
Wake
again.
up. Get that small town shit out of
Governor
here.
Hutchinson,
Fuck them cities.
as former head of the DEA, I understand the
I was
drug
gonna say, when's
crisis
this
in
gonna get to
America.
talk?
And right now, whenever you look at the challenges in our inner city, there's three simple words that would be helpful. One, enforce the law when it comes to crime. Secondly, let's deal with the challenge of fentanyl. And it's both about stopping the fentanyl coming from Mexico, but it's also about education of our young people, making sure that we have the tools that are needed for addiction counseling. That's what we expanded in Arkansas
You
as
don't want
well.
to do that.
Whenever you look
Republicans
at
don't want
the
to
It costs
fund
money.
challenge
mental
of
health.
America, though,
Exactly.
no one
You're
likes to
cutting
see
that
America
shit.
with smash and
You're
grab
turning them
in
into
our
Florida we
inner
are.
cities.
In Florida we
As
are.
president of the United States,
Well, that's
that
why
will
we just
stop.
passed a law that
It
actually
starts
gives
at the
us more,
top with the respect for our justice system that a former
more than
president
drug
who's
users
under indictment
add
has
into people that are
undermined
doing drugs.
by attacking
My
judges,
God,
by
too.
attacking prosecutors, by attacking the system and saying he's aggrieved. And so we have to have respect for our justice system and the rule of law, and it starts at the top with the President of the United States.
Brett,
Thank you.
We're
Hold
gonna
on.
take a break.
Brett.
So, speaking of that, right now you are looking live at Fulton County Jail, where former President Donald Trump will be processed tomorrow. So next 20 minutes, we'll have an opportunity
Tomorrow,
to talk
not
about
tonight.
the trials of Donald Trump.
Tomorrow. Jesus.
Oh,
Really? Did
God.
you really need to do that, Fox?
Hey,
Come
Fox.
on. I mean,
Look at this
Hey,
loser.
listen, he didn't show up. He didn't show up. So,
He
of
gets
course,
the
we
grill.
gotta go.
do they need to show an empty driveway? Really? It's
Fulton
tomorrow.
County.
It's what the people want, David.
I guess so.
Empty driveways.
Okay, David, you get to lead this one because you're all wrong.
I just, they talk about the people making decisions for themselves. All of them will bark up and down the street. Let Americans make their own decisions. So they did. They voted in Monique Worrell as their state's attorney. It was their choice. By a large margin, she was voted in. But because she doesn't do the job that DeSantis wants her to do the job, he pulls her.
No.
He pulls her. But this is a person who was elected by the people. This is the people's choice. The people wanted someone like her who said she was going to go in there and reform things and do things differently, and not try to pursue cases where you don't have evidence. It's the people in the community who will not give testimony, who will
So
not give evidence against the people that she's putting in jail. People, regardless of what they're accused of, have the right to a fair trial. You are innocent until proven guilty. And when the evidence is not there,
And
when people will
victims have
not
a right,
testify against you, your case is dropped.
and victims' families have a right
The
to know
victim's
that
family,
you're
yes,
doing
but
everything in your power
America,
to put them in
it is
jail.
American to be innocent until proven guilty.
I understand, but if you're not
Get
prosecuting,
away from the feelings.
I'm not.
Evidence.
It's not feeling. If you're going, if you're not going and using the full power of your office to investigate that, if the sheriff turns over enough evidence and you still don't go after it,
Stop right there. They don't have the evidence.
No,
That's
you're
where we
saying that.
differ. That's
We'll
where we
find out
differ. Joel,
We'll find out.
if they had
We will
enough
find
evidence
out.
beyond a reasonable doubt, then the person's convicted. But
Are we
when they
gonna,
don't have the evidence, when
David?
you have the community who is not testifying,
Just
who is
because you
not
lie
providing
doesn't mean
evidence, snitches
doesn't
get stitches.
doesn't matter.
It
If you
does matter.
it matters
I'm
if
sorry.
you can prosecute
More
the
people
case.
are going to die because
No,
people in
look.
the community are not stepping up and saying enough is enough.
Well, if you have a prosecutor that's going to do their job. Now, look, we're going to have these
The
all looked at
prosecutor is
again.
doing
They're
her
all
job.
going to be looked at again. I know you don't care for the new state attorney, but they're all
No,
going to be looked
it's
at
not that.
again.
It's not that.
No, they're
I'm
all
just
going to be looked at
saying.
again. And
I'm just
listen,
saying. If you
if
don't have the evidence,
and that's what we're
I
going to find out. That's what
I've
we're going to
been in
find
front
out
of a
right there.
judge thousands of times, and I've had to present evidence to take a child away from their parents. The lowest we had to meet the lowest criteria. And we're talking about we're talking about beyond the reasonable doubt for some of these cases. And if people don't want to give the evidence, regardless of all the efforts of the sheriff or the Orlando PD or whatever, I'm sorry.
But see, you're making an assumption because you don't know these cases. We don't know these
No, I'm
cases.
just stating
We don't know that. We don't know these cases. We're going to
what the
see these
state's attorney
cases.
said herself.
Yeah, and you have a new state attorney who's going to look at he's already promised he's going to look at all these cases, and maybe he exonerates the fact that they all shouldn't have been prosecuted. But if he finds them that should have been, look, it's very subjective. It's very subjective, and I get it, right? But when you throw out more cases on average than others, and if you're not willing to, go the distance, listen, I agree with you on everything you said, but we don't know. And if we could figure out if there were people that backed out.
We do know. It's in the report that we had the podcast on. We do know.
You know that she drops more cases?
Yes.
Because she's scared to lose.
Oh, come on.
She's scared to
That's
lose.
too easy. That's too easy.
On a
Scared to
lighter
lose.
note,
Come on.
many of the
China,
things they've been
Ukraine,
suggesting have been
immigration,
would also
education.
involve raising the budget,
But
more
we are going
cops
to
on the
take a brief
streets,
moment
more
and
investment
talk
in
about
men's
the
health,
elephant
more investment in
not
this.
in
But
the room.
earlier they were all talking about how they're cutting spending.
President
Another
has been
important thing to
indicted
question.
in 4 different states
Yeah,
on
I'm with you on
91
that.
counts. He will be processed tomorrow in Georgia at the Fulton County Jail for
Oh,
charges
here we go.
relating to the 2020 election loss.
You all signed a pledge to support the eventual Republican nominee. If former President Trump is convicted in a court of law, would you still support him as your party's choice? Please raise your hand if you would.
Oh, DeSantis. That he just blew it.
Just hold on.
Vivek is happy.
Just to be clear, Governor Christie, you were kind of late to the game there, but you raised your hand.
No, I'm doing this. Look, I'm doing this.
And
not
I know
this.
you didn't. Well,
No.
what's
And
your
then look,
Just say yes. Just go down the goddamn line
Someone's
and say
got
yes or no. Yes or no.
stop
Yes or no.
normalizing
I'm not
Signed a pledge.
Okay.
You signed a pledge, so and you shouldn't be on the stage.
Now, whether or not you believe that the criminal charges are right or wrong, the conduct is beneath the office of President of the United States.
Here we go.
That's not the question.
And this is the great thing about this country. Booing is allowed, but it doesn't change the truth. It doesn't change the truth.
Yeah, but boos don't get you elected, do they?
I'd like to get in and respond. Let's just speak the truth, okay? President Trump, I believe, was the best president of the 21st century. It's a fact.
There haven't been very many, in all fairness.
There haven't been a lot of them
Your
yet.
claim that Donald Trump is motivated by vengeance and grievance would be a lot more credible if your entire campaign were not based on vengeance and grievance against one man.
Damn. Be back for president.
Donald Trump without
Sorry.
an iota of vision for this country. They could just change the channel to MSNBC right now. But I'm not running for president of MSNBC. I am running for president of the United States. We're skating on thin ice, and we cannot set a precedent where the party in power uses police force to indict its political opponents. It is wrong. We have to end the weaponization of justice in this country.
30 seconds, Governor DeSantis.
Let me tell you,
I'm sorry. 30 seconds, Governor.
You make me laugh because
You make me laugh.
You sit here in an answer.
Is DeSantis still there?
You sit here in an answer right.
I think Ron's just trying not to make himself look silly.
Chris is done.
You sit here in an answer.
He never stood a chance to begin
Go ahead,
with.
Governor Christie.
He never stood a chance to begin with, if I'm being honest with you.
So listen, the more time we spend doing this, the less time they can talk about issues you want to talk about.
Well, that's okay. I'm fine.
No, but I want to boo Christie. Come
You sit
on.
here talking about how you want to stand up for the rule of law.
Yes.
And law and order. And the fact is that it can't be selective. In your book, you had much different things to say about Donald Trump than you're saying here tonight.
That's not true.
Well, it is very true.
That is not true.
It's very true. I read it,
Because
and
there's
I
a
know.
difference
Look,
between bad behavior and illegal
by the way,
behavior, Chris. And you as a
by the way,
prosecutor should know
actually-
that.
you know what? I know a lot
There's
better.
a difference between
I
bad
know,
behavior. And
I know a lot better than you do. You've never done it like you've never done anything to try to advance the interests of this government except to put yourself forward as a candidate tonight. And here's the thing. We've stood up for law and order. I did it as U.S. attorney. I did it as governor. And I am not going to bow to anyone when we have a president of the United States who disrespects the Constitution. He said,
your MSNBC contributor.
he said,
Vivek's losing a little bit. He needs to quiet down.
it's important to say that the president said,
Let him embarrass
Donald
himself.
Trump said, it's okay to suspend the Constitution. Now, the oath you take is to preserve, protect, and defend, not suspend. I will always stand up for our Constitution, regardless of the political pressure.
We have another question for you. We're going to get everyone in on this issue, but I have
Yeah.
another question. I have
Tired
another
of the
question.
bullying.
Hold on, you will. All right. So President Trump's former vice president is on this stage tonight. He has faced hecklers on the campaign trail over his actions on January the 6th. On that day, the vice president
Look at that face.
moved forward with the certification of the election.
Why are we doing this?
So do you believe that Mike Pence did the right thing, Senator Scott? Do you believe he did the right thing?
Absolutely. He did the right thing. Number one. Number two,
Can we move on?
we should be asking ourselves a bigger question about the weaponization of the Department of Justice. When I'm president, the first thing I'll do is fire Merrick Garland. Second thing I'll do, fire Christopher Wray, because we need Lady Justice to wear a blindfold. Without that, no one has confidence in our justice system. 17% of Republicans have confidence in our Department of Justice. Here's why. We keep seeing not only the weaponization of the Department of Justice against political opponents, but also against parents who show up at school board meetings. They're called, under this DOJ, they're called domestic terrorists.
Firing Christopher
But that's not it. But that's not
shut
it.
down the FBI. Actually have the courage to get it right.
Mr. Ramos.
Let me finish my comments.
Yes.
Vivek, try not to
Not only that,
interrupt challenge.
In addition
Impossible.
to that, we see the SWAT team show up at pro-life activist homes with guns drawn because this DOJ uses their power, uses their authority, not just against political opponents, but against conservatives and conservative causes. It is time for a change in America, and I will bring that change to the greatest nation on God's green earth.
We have an
But
important.
Oh,
Governor
God.
DeSantis, do you
That's so
believe that
lame.
Mike Pence did the right thing on January 6th?
So here's what we need to do. We need to end the
Wait.
weaponization of these federal agents.
But that's
And
not
I
the
will do
question.
that.
That's not the question.
This election is not about
DeSantis try to
January
answer a question.
6th of 2021. It's about January 20th of 2025 when the next president is going to take office. I know what the Democrats would like to do. They want to talk about all these other issues, but we've got to focus on your future. We've got to focus on reversing the decline of our country.
Right.
I learned in the military, I was assigned with U.S. Navy SEALs in Iraq, that you focus
took
on the
piss
mission
samples,
above
Ronnie.
all else. You can't
And you
get
tortured
distracted.
people
So
in Guantanamo.
Republicans, we've got to look
Or
forward,
watch them get
and we've got to
tortured and
make
look
sure
away.
that we're bringing the
He
message
didn't
that can
do
win in
torture.
November
Yeah, you just
2024.
watch.
Stop being
It should
a
end
hater.
too far.
The mission of the President of the United States is to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. I think the American people deserve to know whether everyone on this stage agrees that I kept my oath to the Constitution that day. There's no more important duty. So answer the question.
Why are we
He wants you to hit it. Wants
So,
to be
yeah,
patted on the back.
Mike did his duty. I got no beef with him. But here's the thing: is this what we're going to be focusing on going forward? The rehashing of this?
I'm
I'll tell you,
relieved.
The Democrats would love that, and they will win if we let them get away with it. I'm not
You know you're down bad if Mike Pence is asking you to answer a question straight.
No.
Just said, Governor
I
DeSantis, we
think
spent an hour
DeSantis
talking
is
about
doing quite
policy.
well, actually.
Former President Trump is beating you by 30, 40 points in many polls. So it is a factor in the GOP primary. Governor Hutchinson, you did not raise your hand.
I did not raise my hand because there's an important issue we as a party have to face. And over a year ago, I said that Donald Trump was morally disqualified from being president again as a result of what happened on January 6th. More people are understanding the importance of that, including conservative legal scholars who says he may be disqualified under the 14th Amendment from being president again as a result of the insurrection. This is something that could disqualify
called it a what?
him under our rules.
Insurrection.
Insurrection?
Under the Constitution.
He said the
And
words.
so, obviously,
That word
I'm not
came
gonna
out of a
support somebody
Republican's
who's been
mouth?
convicted of a serious felony
you
or
you know
who
that
is,
there's two Republicans on this
disqualified
stage
under
that
our Constitution. And that's
Insurrection.
consistent with RNC
That's right.
rules. And I hope everybody would agree with me.
All right,
on
and
that.
we-
Insurrection.
we're going to move on. No, we're going to.
Martha,
Oh,
can I answer
boy.
the question?
Can I get in on
Okay, I'd like to answer.
You
No,
have
you're
already
like
been
my-
on
hang
it, Vice President Pence.
All right, I'd like to answer the question
Go
you
ahead.
asked and not give a pre-canned speech. Mike
Hey,
Pence
Vivek.
stood for the Constitution, and he deserves not grudging credit. He deserves our thanks as Americans for putting his oath of office and the Constitution of the United States before personal, political, and unfair pressure. And the argument that we need to have in this party before we can move on to the issues that Ron talked about is we have to dispense with the person who said that we need to suspend the Constitution to put forward his political career. Mike Pence said no, and he deserves credit for it.
Okay. Governor Haley, we haven't heard from you on this. Do you agree? Do you agree that Vice President Pence did the right thing that day or not?
I do
It's
think
the
that
right thing.
Vice President Pence did the right thing. And I do think that we need to give him credit for that. But what I will also tell you is, look, I mean, when it comes to whether President Trump should serve or not, I trust the American people. Let them vote. Let them decide.
Well, then-
But what they will
then
tell
get off
you
the
is
stage.
that it is time for a new generational conservative leader. We have
Okay,
to look at the
Vivek.
fact that 3/4 of Americans don't want a rematch between Trump and Biden.
I do.
And we have to face the fact that Trump is the most
Good for you,
disliked
David.
politician in America. We can't
Let us
win
have
a
our fun.
general election that way.
Governor Bergen.
It's Governor Bergen, opportunity.
Happy to answer the question. Mike Pence did the right thing on January 6th.
Who's this
But I want
guy?
to say, you started off the top of this hour saying we're going to talk about China, Ukraine, education.
We are.
China is the number one threat to our country. And every minute that these 8 candidates spend talking about the past instead about the future is time that is just you know who loves it? Biden loves it, but China loves it when we're talking about the past.
David loves it.
As promised, we're going to spend a few questions on it, let people say what they wanted to say, and now, indeed,
Yeah,
we are
Fox,
moving on.
address
to the subject.
David.
The
I
U.S.
could go for
has
another
committed
drink.
nearly
Yeah.
77.
Can I speak on this issue? I was
You
kind of
did
involved.
you answered on this.
You did say something. I thought we thought you were done, but you
no.
Getting old.
Well, Mike, why don't you say this? Join me
Yeah.
in making a commitment that on day one you would pardon Donald Trump. I'm the only candidate on the stage who had the courage to actually say it. That is how we move our nation forward.
I don't know
And
why
turn the
you
page
assume that
forward. That's
Donald
exactly
Trump
right.
will be convicted of these crimes.
You can't be able to make a commitment. The same justice system that was this
Vivek, there's a
corrupt.
difference between you and me.
Yeah, I'm not a professional politician. That's the difference. You can answer a question.
I've actually given pardons when I was governor of the state of Indiana. It usually follows a finding of guilt and contrition by the individual that's been convicted.
The question was a hypothetical,
If I'm president of
Mike.
the United States, we'll give fair consideration
I
to any
still like
pardon
this
request. But if I met,
Ooh, an audience. My favorite answer.
I love non-answers.
You know, it's not about looking back at January 2021. It's about January 20th, 2017. I put my left hand on Ronald Reagan's Bible. I raised my right hand. And I took an oath
Story time.
to support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Mother,
And
come
it
get
ended
me.
with a prayer. So help me God. It was a promise that I made to the American
Yes,
people.
your cock is big. We get it.
But I also made it to my Heavenly Father. Every day for 4 years, I tried to keep.
Everyone bow your heads in prayer.
Everyone on this stage needs to make it
I did a
clear
good
that they'll
thing.
do the same.
Praise
Make
him.
it fun
If
of
they earn
them.
this job and the confidence of the American
Us in the
people.
conservative party know that he's
Now, look, I've made it clear. I had hoped that the issues surrounding the 2020 election and the controversies around January 6th had not come to this, had not come to criminal
Time's up.
proceedings.
Amen.
I would rather they had been resolved by the American people
Oh,
and the
Lord.
American people alone. But no one's above the law. And President Trump is entitled to the presumption of innocence that every American is entitled to. And we will make sure and extend that to him. But the American people deserve to know that the president asked me in his request that I reject or return votes unilaterally, power that no vice president in American history had ever exercised or taken. He asked me to put him over the Constitution. And I chose the
Whoa.
Constitution, and I always will. I had no
Vice
right to
President Pence.
overturn the
Whoa,
election.
whoa, whoa.
And Kamala Harris
No,
will
no,
have
don't
no
come up.
right
It's getting
to
good.
overturn the election when we beat them in 2024.
Thank you, Vice President
Shut up,
Pence.
Mike. Whoa, so
Now we
he's
are
going to be
moving
called
on
to a
other
witness.
issues.
To be a
The
witness.
U.S. has committed
Well,
nearly
he's already.
$77 billion in aid
Yes,
to the
okay.
Ukraine war.
I think
The administration is
Kevin
now asking Congress for $24 billion more. Regardless of that, the specifics of that plan, is there anyone on stage who would not support the increase of more funding to Ukraine?
We would,
I would
need
not support it.
Europe needs to step up. I mean, I would have Europe step up and do their job.
Mr. Ramaswamy,
Right.
you're saying you would not too, Governor DeSantis?
I will have Europe pull their weight.
But you
Right
would-
now, they're not doing
you
that,
would not
and I
support
think
more
we need
funding?
to do.
No to me.
And I think our support should be contingent on them doing it. And I would have support in China to be able to take,
Is he testing for wind
and
resistance?
do what we need to do with China.
Mr. Ramaswamy,
Ooh.
you would not support an increase of funding to Ukraine?
I would not. And I think that this is disastrous, that we are protecting against an invasion across somebody else's border when we should use those same military resources to prevent across the invasion of our own southern border here in the United States.
Yeah, he's making a good point. Conservatives, he's making a good point.
Russia-China
He is?
alliance is the single
Yeah.
greatest threat we face. And I find it offensive that we have professional politicians on the stage that will make a pilgrimage to Kyiv, to their Pope, Zelensky, without doing the same thing for people in Maui or the south side of Chicago or
So
Kensington.
guys, see, name calling doesn't
The
work.
interests of Americans
Oh,
first,
points on that.
secure our own border instead of somebody else's. And the
Outside.
reality is, this is also how we project strength
And he
by
says
making
we're
America
using
strong
soundbite?
at home.
Thank you.
All right, we
we're
heard,
gonna
we
go-
heard the names.
let's-
Governor
let's
Christie
go to-
first.
All right.
Yeah.
Look, I did go to Ukraine, and I went to Ukraine because I wanted to see for myself what Vladimir Putin's army was doing to the free Ukrainian people. And let me tell
That's
you,
what you get
I
the
want you
news
all to
for.
look around this arena tonight and imagine that every one of these seats was filled. And if every one of them was filled, there would still be 2,500 more children outside to make over 20,000 who have been abducted, stolen, ripped from their mothers and fathers, and brought back to Russia to be programmed to fight their own families. They have gouged out people's eyes, cut off their ears, and shot people in the back of the head, men, and then gone into those homes and raped the daughters and the wives who were left as widows and orphans. This is the Vladimir Putin. This is the Vladimir Putin who Donald Trump called brilliant and a genius. If we don't stand up against this type of autocratic killing in the world, we will be next.
You were mentioned.
Governor Haley. We'll come back.
Vice President Pence was mentioned. You get 30 seconds.
Yeah, well, let me be clear. Anybody that thinks that we can't solve the problems here in the United States and be the leader of the free world has a pretty small view of the greatest nation on earth.
That is incorrect.
We can do
Did-
both, Vivek.
You guys
We've done
clamored
both.
about the
We've been the leader
southern
of the free
border.
world in
It's
the arts of
not
democracy
fixed,
for
according
years.
to you
The Reagan
guys.
Doctrine years ago made it
You
clear.
have 4
We said, if you're
fucking
willing
years to
fight the
deal with
communists
it.
on your soil, we'll give you the means to fight them there, so our troops don't
David,
have
it's
to
a
fight
Democrat's
them.
fault.
If we do the
Forgot.
giveaway
You,
that you
you
want
had
to
your
give to Putin to
president,
give him his
you had your
land, it's
president
not
put
going to
in
be too
office,
long
and they
before he
started
rolls
coming back
across
over.
a NATO border.
My president
and
said he
probably
was
our
going to
men
build
and
the
women of our
wall.
armed forces are going to have to go and fight
You
him.
build the
I
wall.
let the Ukrainians
He
fight
built
him.
part of a
We still
wall.
have the problem.
And then your president,
Why are we still
decided to
concerned?
stop the funding, and it's just rusting
Vice
there.
President Pence, I have a newsflash. The USSR does not exist anymore. It fell back in 1990. The real threat, you talked about the communists, and the real communists that we have to address right now
have
is
any
the
idea what
I let you,
Putin's aims
you
are.
already spoke. Now I actually have something to say.
Vladimir Putin has been saying he wants to reestablish the old Soviet sphere.
You've made
of
your point,
He did
influence.
say
Vice
that.
President.
Now, if you think, I'm sorry if I insulted him by calling him a communist. He is a dictator and a murderer. And the United
Then why
States
did
of
you deal
America
with him
needs
when
to
you
stand
were vice
against
president?
Authoritarianism.
Jeez.
The real
president.
threat we face today is communist China.
Thank
we are
you.
driving Russia further into China's arms.
Yes.
The Russia-China military alliance is the single greatest threat we face. Nobody
Thank
in either
you.
political party's talking about it.
everybody-
And I am the only non-neocon on this stage who will keep us out of war.
Where's Ron? Is Ron still on the stage? Where's my governor?
Mr. Vice President.
He's trying to
Promise that
behave
Ukraine
himself.
will never be in NATO, and then somehow
Mr. Vice President.
China will not think about taking Taiwan. We achieve peace through strength.
Mr. Vice
And
President.
America needs to stand for freedom.
Okay, here we go.
I think we need to reestablish some ground rules
When
here,
we
folks.
hear this bell,
Yes.
that means your time's
We're
done.
done.
So, Mr. Vice President, we appreciate your aggressiveness here. 30 seconds is 30 seconds. Mr. Ramaswamy, you were mentioned. You get 30 seconds.
So the reality is that today, Ukraine is not a priority for the United States of America. And I think that the same people who took us into the Iraq War, the same people who took us into the Vietnam War, you cannot start another no-win war. And I do not want to get to the point where we're sending our military resources abroad when we could be better using them here at home to protect our own borders,
You're not allowed
protect
to.
the homeland.
All right.
That will be
You're
my
not allowed
top
to do that.
priority in foreign
I
policy.
think we gave you
Protect
more than
this.
the
That's
30
what the
seconds
conservatives
that we
been
got. So I
talking
do wanna
about.
get to some
Protect the
other people
homeland.
because
Now all of a
everybody,
sudden you don't want to.
We respect everybody's time here. So, Governor
using
Haley,
the military.
you did not raise your hand, meaning that you would support more funding for the Ukraine war. You have said of Governor DeSantis that you didn't appreciate it when he initially called it a territorial dispute. Why?
First of all, the American president needs to have moral clarity. They need to know the difference between right and wrong. They need to know the difference between good and evil. Right. When you look at the situation with Russia and Ukraine, here you have a pro-American country that was invaded by a thug. So when you want to talk about what has been given to Ukraine, less than 3.5% of our defense budget has been given to Ukraine. If you look at the percentages per GDP, 11 of the European countries have given more than the U.S. But what's really important is go back to when China and Russia held hands, shook hands before the Olympics, and named themselves unlimited partners. A win for Russia is a win for China. We have to know that. Ukraine is the first line of defense for us. And the problem that Vivek doesn't understand is he wants to hand Ukraine to Russia. He wants to let China eat Taiwan. He wants to go and stop funding Israel. You don't do that to friends. What you do instead is you have the backs of your friends. Ukraine is the front line of defense. Putin has said, once Russia takes Ukraine, Poland and the Baltics are next. That's a world war. We're trying to prevent war. Look at what Putin did today. He killed Prigozhin. When I was at the UN, the Russian ambassador suddenly died. This guy is a murderer, and you are choosing a murderer over a
Only smart enough to say that.
First of all, Mr. Ramaswamy.
But didn't Bush look into the soul of Putin and saw a good man?
But the fact of the matter, Boeing came off of it, but you've been pushing this lie. You've been pushing this lie all week, Nikki.
To go and defund Israel, you want to
Okay,
get
let me
Taiwan
address
to
that.
China?
I'm glad you
You
brought
want
that
to
up.
go and give
I'm going to
Ukraine
address
Russia?
each of those right now. This is
Let's do it.
false lies
it shows.
And you know what? The
It shows.
foreign policy experience that you all have
Ooh.
shows wars we've gotten into. I have to address that. So our relationship with Israel will never be stronger than by the end of my
Oh my, this is off the
Not a
rails.
client relationship. It is a friendship.
You know,
And
that's
what
Nikki's
friends do,
being cheered
friends
right there.
help each other
Yeah.
stand on their own 2 feet. So I will lead Abraham Accords 2.0. I will partner with Israel to make sure Iran never is nuclear armed. But you know what I love about Israel? And I've been there probably in the last 10 years more than most people on this stage. You know what I love about them? I love their border policies. I love their tough on crime policies. I love that they have a national identity and an iron dome to protect their homeland. And so, yes, I want to learn from the friends that we're supporting. And what puzzles
you wanna
me
cut the
is,
aid
I want to
off.
learn
And
from
let me
those and
tell
apply
you,
those to protect
it's
our
not
homeland,
that
Nikki.
Israel
That is
needs
the answer.
America.
Can we
America
move on?
needs Israel.
Okay,
They
Governor
are the
DeSantis,
first line of defense
Governor
to
DeSantis, you were mentioned in the territorial dispute. Not only
No, it's not a territorial dispute
President of
either.
the United States, your first obligation is to defend our country and its people. And that means you're sending all this money, but you're not doing what we need to do to secure our own border. We have tens of thousands of people
We can
who
do
are
both
being
at the
killed because
same
we're
time.
not handling
And
both.
we can do
And so
both
I am
at
going
the
to
same
declare it a
time.
national emergency. I'm not going to send troops to Ukraine, but I am going to send them to our southern border. When these drug pushers are bringing fentanyl across the border, that's going to be the last thing they do. We're going to use force, and we're going to leave them stone cold dead.
we're actually going to move on to China. We're going to talk about China.
Okay.
Governor Berger.
China.
China has the biggest navy in the world, the biggest
Yep.
army in the world. Now they
Yep.
have warships off the coast of Alaska. They're
Yep.
threatening Taiwan.
Yep.
In coming years, China will have 1,500 nuclear warheads, it's
Yep.
believed. The U.S. just arrested 2 sailors accused of spying for China within our military. So the question is, how would you deter China as a president, Berger?
Well, this is the number one issue we're facing. And of course, we haven't been talking about it. And we act like that letting Russia win in the Ukraine is like a gimme as opposed to a gift to China. Russia has become China's gas station. But how would we do it? The Biden administration is a complete fail. China imports 10 million barrels of oil a day, more than any other country in the world. They do not even have all the food they need to feed everybody in that country. So they don't have energy security or food security. But the Biden administration sends Blinken, Yellen over there. They're over there. They don't even bring up energy because they're too busy trying to kill the U.S. energy here. And what we need to do is not meetings, not press releases, because something that would send a lot more than a press release is actually Harpoon missiles. We need anti-ship missiles on Taiwan. The way that you have a war never start, which is the goal, the way you have peace through strength, is that you actually have strength. You actually have deterrence. And what we have in what we've got going on in Ukraine is an example of when deterrence fail. What is an example there of Biden's disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, the fact that he greenlighted Putin moving into Ukraine, and then now they see weakness, and when they see weakness, they make a move. And we have to be strong, and we have to be strong both in Ukraine, and we can solve the southern border. Absolutely, we can do that, because guess what? There's only 19,855 authorized people for the Border Patrol, but they're not all staff because the Biden administration doesn't enforce law enforcement. But Biden administration
Get that man some oxygen.
1,000 people in the IRS as opposed to giving the money in the fort we need to our own Border Patrol.
Okay. Senator Scott, on China, that same question.
Long-winded.
Let's fire the 87,000 IRS agents and hire or double the number of Border Patrol agents. I just left Yuma, Arizona about 2 weeks ago. The most pressing need of the American people from a national security standpoint is our southern border. It has led to the death of 70,000 Americans because of fentanyl. Plus 6 million illegal crossings since President Biden has taken office, and 200 people on our national security watch list southern border. If we just spend $10 billion, we could finish the wall. For $5 billion more, we could have the military-grade technology to surveil our southern border to stop the flow of fentanyl and save 70,000 Americans a year. That should be the priority of this
You can't
government.
stop
And
the-
as the next president of the United States, I
It's
will
gonna
make
still
that
come
border
through.
wall complete.
There are many more
I
questions
just
on
wanna say-
China. I do want to
I want to
ask
say
about.
I want to say I couldn't agree more. It's not just the 70,000 from fentanyl. We've lost 200,000 people to overdoses since Biden took office. That's 300 people a day. We're taking mass casualties, and that's a statistic, but these are sons and daughters, nieces and nephews that we're losing. We've got North Dakota troops down there flying
he's
night
done a
helicopter
better job
missions
than expected.
from San Diego to the Gulf Coast, trying to stop these transnational criminal organizations. They've got better funding on their side than we've got on our side.
Speaking of which, Governor Hutchinson, images from earlier this month, Governor Hutchinson,
with Mexico,
Vice President Pence,
policy.
images from earlier this month.
We secured the southern
Vice
border of
President
the
Pence, it
United
really
States.
doesn't help. I'm asking a question.
It's Pence.
Earlier this month,
He's trying to get some voice time.
images showed suspected cartel members crossing into Texas with rifles. Do you consider this an invasion? Would you authorize lethal force along that border?
There would be lethal force used by the Border Patrol, law enforcement as needed to protect the border. Absolutely. When you
Yes.
look at the military has to be used for intelligence gathering purposes. This is not unusual. Whenever I was in the Bush administration, we went down there and met with President Vicente Fox of Mexico and asked his help in going after the cartels. And he looked at me and said, they're a problem to us as well. And so we joined together and we took down the Ariana Felix brothers leading the Tijuana cartel. And that made a difference. Ramon was shot and killed and Ben Amin was captured. Cooperation makes a difference. We cannot be successful going against the cartel unless we bring in Mexico as a partner. We have to use economic pressure to accomplish that. President Obrador has not been helpful, and we have to use economic pressure that this administration is not using. The rule of law has to matter on both sides of it.
Okay.
This is critical. I've done it. We know what needs to be done. The military
that
has to
bell,
be
do they?
limited in its use. When after 9/11, we had the global war on terror, and guess what? We protected the border at the same time. You can do both.
Okay, let's go to Governor DeSantis. So, as president, would you support sending U.S. Special Forces over the border
He would.
into Mexico to
Yes.
take out fentanyl labs, to take out drug
He
cartel
would.
operations? Would you support that kind of American military use?
Yes, and I will do it on day one. Here's the thing.
You can invade a
Cartels
sovereign
are
country?
killing tens of
Ooh,
thousands
no.
of our fellow
He's a
citizens.
dictator. I love
the
You wanna talk about
military.
a country in decline? You have the cartels controlling a lot of part of your southern border. We have to reestablish the rule of law, and we have to
This was a
defend
JAG
our
officer,
people.
everybody.
The president
This
of the
was a JAG
United
officer.
States has
I
got
know.
to use all available powers as commander in chief to protect our
The
country
dictator.
and to
Maybe
protect
going
the
in.
people. So when
Maybe
they're
he just
coming
didn't realize how
across,
the question
yes,
was
we're going to
worded.
use lethal force.
He's pulling a
We
Putin.
reserve the right to operate. How many more tens of thousands are we going to let to
He
die?
asked if you were
I
gonna
am
go over
sick.
the
I've
border.
met angel moms throughout this country. I met a lady in Texas named Tracy, and her son took one Percocet that was laced with fentanyl, immediately died. That is happening all across this country because of the poison that they are bringing in. So as president, would I use force? Would I treat them as foreign terrorist organizations? You're darn right I would.
You know, Vice President Pence,
There you go. There you go. Triple down.
why would you be better at this issue than Governor DeSantis? Governor DeSantis on the campaign trail refers to your administration as not finishing the wall.
Right.
Mm.
Look, we secured the
pray
southern
again?
border of the United States of America and reduced illegal immigration and asylum abuse by 90%.
Yeah.
When Joe Biden took over, he threw open the southern border of the
Yes.
United States, and the wave of humanity, the wave of fentanyl,
Blame Joe. Blame
eloquently
Joe.
described here,
It is Joe's
is a wave of human tragedy across
David,
this country.
everything's the
McCarthy, you
Democrats'
began this.
fault.
You
Exactly.
know, talking about
Blame
who
the
is
Big
the
problem, man.
next president
The
of the
border,
United States.
the border.
While the Republicans
tell
just
you, with all
sat back and let
humility,
it happen. Come on now.
I was there when we negotiated through the government shutdown and got the funding available to build the wall. I was negotiating on Capitol Hill around the clock. I negotiated the Remain in Mexico policy on behalf of the President of the United States. And AC, you're
All
so
about
right.
me.
It's because
Yep.
we used economic pressure to bring the Mexicans to the
He's taking
table,
all the,
and they allowed
the
us
acclaim.
to have
Take
people
some of the
wait in
blame
Mexico
there,
while they
Mike.
applied for asylum and ended
Mother,
asylum
come
abuse.
get your boy off the stage.
We got the Mexicans to deploy their National Guard to their southern border and to our southern border as never before. And I want to promise you, as President of the United States of America, I will engage Mexico the exact same way, and we will partner with the Mexican military, and we will hunt down and destroy the cartels that are claiming lives in the United States of America.
Okay, thank you. Another issue that is related to this is that almost 7 million migrants have crossed this border, our southern border, during the Biden administration. So, Governor Christie, what would you do about the 7 million who are here? How would you handle them? What would you do?
Look, Martha, the first thing we need to do is to stop any more from coming. That's the first thing we need to do. Then the next thing we need to do with the folks that are here is to, again, as we've talked about all night tonight, we have to have law and order in this country. We have to enforce the law. And what that means is to make sure that people who come here illegally are not rewarded for being here illegally. We have so many wonderful people from around the world who are waiting in line, following the law to try to come here and pursue the American dream. And those people are waiting and waiting and waiting because we haven't dealt with the problem of the folks who are here. We have to have them detained. We have to make sure that they are not rewarded for having broken the law. And one last thing on this fentanyl issue. With China, we can't take our eye off of that ball. Yes, it's important that we secure the border. Very important, as I just said. But China is sending these chemicals to these drug cartels for them to create the fentanyl that is killing hundreds of thousands of our citizens. The Chinese are engaging in an act of war against us, killing our citizens. We better make that priority one in our conversations with China and to try to straighten
I
that
didn't hear
relationship.
no bell.
If we don't, we're going to lose more and more of our
I
citizens.
just want to clarify. Would you send those people
You let him
back?
speak more.
Of course. You'd have to.
We have a lot of issues that Americans care about. Next up, we're going to talk about the crisis in education, as millions of American children are not proficient in reading or math after this.
Well, frankly, y'all need to get smarter.
Oh my God, this has been absolutely hilarious.
It's definitely been entertaining.
Yeah, and here we were worried that we were going to get bored.
I agree. I am pleasantly surprised. I think the Republicans were putting on a very good show.
I'm speechless. I'm speechless. I'm still trying to go. Here's the thing. I am a Republican, and
I'm sorry to hear that.
when you start to look at this and you go, how far away some of these people are, I don't think, to give the governor credit, right? I don't believe that.
You talk about DeSantis.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, DeSantis. I don't think he heard the fact that she talked about sending them over into Mexico.
Oh God, I hope not.
He wanted
the question correctly.
He wanted to be so macho about it that, you know, as a JAG attorney, I know that he knows better than to invade another country. Like that relationship with Mexico is important. So
I mean,
I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. So I'm going to play that up as
But this is nothing new for Ron. He's stated this before. This is nothing new. This is Ron being hardcore, and he's been hardcore about everything.
So
Ron, do you beat your kids? I beat my kids. They get a good wallop.
Yeah, he's never said that.
You know,
you need to.
He's doubling down. He's tripling down.
Okay, now we're at a break right now, and what do you think? What do you think is the who's doing the best so far? Who is hit the Republican platform the most?
Kellen?
Thus far, Haley and Ramaswamy easily.
Hands down.
Easily.
Me too. Listen, if there are two people, if you were to say you need to dwindle this field down today, the two strongest contenders here, Nikki stood up to the party and pointed out, our weaknesses and that we need to get back to strength. Vivek, I think he's doing a really good job. He's holding his own, but his age is definitely. They're attacking him on his age. They need to start attacking him on his like
experience.
Like Nikki did. You have no foreign policy, and then just move on. So I think that and Mike has destroyed his campaign. As much as I like Mike Pence, he's destroyed his campaign. I think the governor from North Dakota has done better with his answers, but nobody's hearing him. He's like that. He's saying the right things, but he's when you watch the Peanuts cartoon, he's an adult.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
And Ace is entertaining. Ace is entertaining, but he's not going to get any time. He's not getting any floor time.
Vivek has been definitive. He has been very clear and consistent with where he stands. Period. No long-winded answers.
Exposing chronic absenteeism, deep declines for reading and math for 15-year-olds and 13-year-olds. Governor DeSantis, you would eliminate, you said, the Department of Education. But as president, would you still have a responsibility to fix this crisis as we see it?
Absolutely. The decline in education is one of the major reasons why our country is in decline. We need education in this country, not indoctrination in this country. And in Florida, we stood up for what was right. First, we had schools open during COVID, and a lot of the problems that we've seen are because
90,000 people were
locked their kids out of
killed
school for
by
a
the virus.
year and a half. That was wrong. We stood up. I took a lot of fire for that. I was pilloried by the media, but I stood for our kids. And as president, I'll stand for you and your kids as well. But we have to make sure that what our schools are doing is focusing on solid academics. In Florida, we eliminated critical race theory from our K through 12 schools. We eliminated gender ideology from our K through 12 schools. And we have elevated the importance of American civics in teaching our kids about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. As president, I'm going to lead an effort to increase civic understanding and knowledge of our Constitution. We cannot be graduating students that don't have any foundation in what it means to be an American.
Mr. Ramaswamy, hold on, Senator Scott. You've said that the Department of Education, the FBI, the ATF, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the IRS, the Department of Commerce, many of these should not exist.
That's correct.
So to the education question, how would you deal with the crisis?
So look, we have a crisis of achievement. Let's shut down the head of the snake, the Department of Education. Take that $80 billion, put it in the hands of parents across this country. This is the civil rights issue of our time. Allow any parent to choose where they send their kids to school. End the teachers' unions at the local level to allow public schools to compete. And then revive our national identity where every high school senior should have to pass the same civics test that, frankly, every immigrant, including my mother, had to pass in order to become a citizen.
I'm sorry, I love that. I love that comment.
Yes.
Because I think immigrants have a better grasp of our government.
I didn't grow up in money.
We need to bring back
word
civics
privilege gets
in
used a
the
lot.
in
Well, you know what? I did have
such
the
a
privilege of two
serious
parents in
way.
the house with a focus on educational achievement. And I want every kid to enjoy that. So part of the problem is we also have a federal government that pays single women more not to have a man in the house than to have a man in the house, contributing to an epidemic of fatherlessness. And
Thank you.
hand in glove with the education crisis as well, because we have to remember education starts with the family, and the nuclear family is the greatest form of governance known to mankind.
Yeah.
Family.
Yeah.
The man's on fire.
Yes, he is.
biological boys playing in girls' sports is the women's issue of our time.
Uh-oh.
You said that even though you signed a ban on this in North Dakota, that there hadn't been one instance where it was actually needed. Are you saying that you think that too much is made of this issue?
No, I'm saying in North Dakota, we made a priority of protecting women's sports, and we've done that in our state. But I would absolutely do that. But I do think when we start talking about education and we think that we're going to have a federal government one size fits all, we're just completely losing track of the fact that education differs by states. Some school districts are doing a fantastic job, some less so. But the idea that every school district in the state and every teacher is somehow indoctrinating people is just false. When I was building a company from scratch, with small town kids, and we went, grew up in a town of 300, but we built a global company in 132 countries with over 100,000 customers. We listened to those customers. We spent time with them. We talked to them. We did that. And as governor, well, education is one of the biggest part of a state budget. So as a governor, I shadow a student. The night before I find out the student finds out, I'm going to go to every class with them. I don't sit and lecture school districts how to do it. I go and see the experience. And there's a lot of things that have to change. But what needs to change in education is it's innovation. We're doing it the same way we did it 50 years ago with innovation, not regulation. I would get rid of the Department of Education. I would give block grants to schools, but I'd give them on merit based on who's doing the most innovative. I just got done holding the 7th annual Governor's Conference on Innovation Education. You should see what the people are doing when you cut loose the red tape, get the burden off their back. They care. Teachers in this country, the vast majority of them care about those kids. They're working in low-paying jobs, and they're fighting for those kids and their families.
You said that this is the women's issue of our time.
First, I'll tell you, as a parent, the one thing you want is for your child to have a better life than you did. And we can talk about all of these things, and there's a lot of crazy woke things happening in schools, but we've got to get these kids reading. If a child can't read by 3rd grade, they're 4 times less likely to graduate high school. So we need to make sure we bring in reading remediation all over this country. We need transparency in the classroom because parents should never have to wonder what's being said or taught to their children in the classroom. Parents need to be deciding which schools their kids go to because they know best. And let's put vocational classes back into the high schools. Let's teach our kids to build things again.
I love it.
When we do that and we allow that innovation, that's when it'll get back. And yes, I will always say I'm going to fight for girls all day long because strong girls become strong women become strong leaders, and biological boys don't belong in the locker rooms of any of our girls.
Another point of education.
Ooh, there we go, guys.
And the first question is going to go to you, Vice President. So this is a lightning round of questions, 30-second answers, please. President Biden will be 82 years old on Inauguration Day. Nearly 70% of Americans say that he is too old to serve. Should presidents have to pass a mental and physical test in order to serve Vice President Pence?
Well, it might be a good idea to have everybody in Washington, D.C. pass a mental and 30 seconds. No, the American people can make those judgments. But let me say, I'm running for president of the United States because we don't need a president who's too old, and we don't need a president who's too young. We need a president who's been there. We need a president who knows how Congress works, how the White House works, how states work. And on this education issue, Martha, I was fighting against No Child Left Behind when Republicans were doubling the Department of Education. I'll also shut down the federal Department of Education. And when I was governor, we doubled the size of the largest school choice program in America, and we'll give school choice to every family in America when I'm in the White House.
This is a lightning round, Mr.
This is to
Ramaswamy. I
Wisconsin.
think you were mentioned there. You're 38. You're the youngest on the stage. You've said, and you just said, you want a civics test or public service for those under 25 to be able to vote. So the question is, do you want a mental acuity test for presidents over 75?
I believe in the people of this country to tell the difference between somebody who's an automaton and somebody who's actually a thinking agent in the White House, which we don't have in there today. And I will tell you, I want to address Vice President Pence's comment. I think we do need somebody of a different generation to lead this nation forward. Look at the way I've run this campaign. Going to the south side of Chicago, to Kensington, in the middle of Philadelphia, where traditional Republican candidates don't go. We have an opportunity to build a multi-ethnic working class majority to deliver a landslide. And I think I'm the only candidate in this race, young or old, black or white, to bring all of those voters along to deliver a Reagan 1980 revolution. We're going to do it in 2024.
Same question to you,
Harkening back.
I will answer that. I will answer that.
30 seconds.
30-second quick answer.
You guys know.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Everybody's going to get a chance to get
Listen,
control
we're
of
getting
this
control of the debate. This is a lightning
The dynamic
round, not
duo.
rolling thunder. Governor Hutchinson, you have 30 seconds on the same question.
On education, first of all, look at Arkansas. We have to compete with China. I built computer science education. We led the nation in computer science education, going from 1,100 students to 23,000 students taking it. This is how you compete with China. As president of the United
avoid
States,
Arkansas.
I will make sure we go from 51% of our schools offering computer science to every school in rural areas and urban areas offering computer science for the benefit of our kids, and we can compete with China in terms of technology.
Computer science should be offering AI,
This is
VR.
coming to you. We're trying to do a quick round of different topics here. So, Senator Scott, faith is on decline in this country. You talked about it a little bit before tonight. So, is there a role for a president of the United States in changing that? What would you do to change that?
Well, our nation was founded upon the Judeo-Christian values that has made this the greatest nation on God's green
Oh,
earth.
Jesus.
I'm a big believer in Ephesians 3:20 that God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or
How is that
imagine.
gonna
Our
bring
responsibility
the
should be to
cost of
model
gas down?
behavior we want others to follow.
That wasn't the question.
On education, the only way we change education in this nation is to break the backs of the teachers' unions. They are standing in the doorhouse of our kids, locking them into failing
That's right. Go after
schools
women.
and locking them
That's
out
it, Tim. Go after
of the
women.
greatest future they could have.
Well, what are you talking about?
As
How's that
President
going
Governor
after
DeSantis,
women?
would you support
Are you
some
saying that
mandatory
the
military
teachers
service
union
for
is all
Americans?
women?
I think it should be voluntary. I'm somebody that
I think
volunteered
Women
to go
dominate.
fire
Women
by September
dominate
11th,
the ranks
and
of
I
teachers.
deployed
Doesn't
to
matter
Iraq
if they dominate.
alongside U.S.
It
Navy
doesn't matter if
SEALs in
it's not who
places
you're
like
going after.
Fallujah, Ramadi. And it's something that I think has taught me, when you go in that type of environment, anything you have, your personal agenda, you check it at the door. You go there, and it's about focusing on the mission above all else. And guys come together, and they get it done. And that's how I would view being the president of the United States. It's not about me. It's not about all these other side issues. My sole focus will be on your future and reversing this country's decline.
Okay, now for something a little out of this
Women are
world.
not gonna
This
like
is
that
for
answer.
you, Governor Christie. Do you believe that the recent spike in UFO encounters?
Oh, Lord.
I get the UFO question?
Yeah, you do.
Come on, man.
Yeah,
Get
but
that
seriously,
you.
this is so ignorant.
We've heard here a lot of testimony in Congress, and people are taking this
From
a lot more
one guy.
seriously. And we're hearing that, there are things going on that people aren't aware of. So, if you were president, Governor Christie, would you level with the American people about what the government knows about these possible
Look,
encounters?
Martha, and especially coming from a woman from New Jersey, I think it's horrible that just because I'm from New Jersey, you asked me about unidentified flying objects and Martians. We're different, but we're not that different. Look, of course, the job of the President of the United States is to level with the American people about everything. The job of the President of the United States is to stand for truth. The job of the President of the United States is to be a role model for our children and our grandchildren. And so whether it was UFOs or this problem of education, and Tim's right, by the way, and I started this in 2010 by going right after the teachers' unions in New Jersey and drove them down to an all-time low popularity rating because they were putting themselves before our kids. That is the biggest threat to our country, not UFOs.
Okay. Well, coming up, we've got closing arguments. Plus,
UFOs are pretty
right after
scary,
the debate,
Chris.
Hannity is live from the spin room right here in the Fiserv Forum with reaction from all the candidates. As soon as they step off the stage, we'll be back after this.
No. I don't understand this war on teachers.
What do you mean war on teachers? It's the teachers union. What's the difference?
Do you know how hard it is to teach kids?
Oh yeah, it's not teaching. I told you. We don't teach kids anymore. We raise them.
Do you know how
Parents are
hard
no
it is
longer
to raise
parents are no
kids?
longer most parents are no longer involved in a child's education. And then
Yeah, yeah.
when
Both
we
parents
find
are out
out
the home trying to
but then
raise a
when,
family.
I'm just saying it's just not happening anymore. So so yeah, teaching is I mean if they got paid for counseling and teaching, that would be different because it's like parents don't have all the answers, but nowadays we're just making school, we're adding school to, younger and younger children so that parents don't have to pay for childcare because both parents are working. If one parent decided to stay at home, that would take care of that one. I mean, would be no different than the money you spend at putting a kid in daycare. And now we
In
want the
this
government to take
economy,
over that
though,
responsibility.
I think Haley has a point when she says that people need to know what is being taught. Transparency is different from like declaring war on unions, declaring war on wokeness, which is in every corner of schools apparently. And yes, I mean we need to fight for transparency, but people like DeSantis, like I'm and I kind of wish somebody mentioned the PragerU thing to DeSantis because now we're showing a handful of videos to kids, one of which tells them that climate change isn't real and people who say that are liars. The video "Who's More Radical," which is disingenuous on both sides, basically saying, and also the videos that they're showing actively discourage kids to discuss it. You know, that's what we need to look at. Not that our ideology is represented. My feelings, my feelers. It's not if they're. We need to look at: are we teaching kids how to think?
No.
Well, I want them to teach. I'd like people to teach education, you know, history the way it should be taught.
Yes.
Let's,
Hell
let's,
yeah.
let's not take it from Howard Zinn's point of view or the U.S. government's point of view. Let's take it from what we know for fact. Don't take it from a pessimistic way or a total optimistic way. Let's look at what really happened. Give me liberty and give me death. It sounds beautiful, but
But
to it was used as propaganda to keep people motivated and engaged, but they wouldn't give up. Now we use it as though it was actually said, even though we know for a fact it was. If you
but
want
see,
to say, okay, talk history.
here in Florida, they'll teach you that slavery had its benefits for slaves.
Sure.
In Illinois, they'll teach you that slavery was bad. Period. People suffered. Families were broken. Men and women were broken. So to just say, okay, just teach history, there's some nuance to that. You just can't teach history in Florida and it's different from teaching history in Illinois and vice versa.
Well, this, I agree with you. My point here is let's look at our history. Let's look at our civics. Let's look at the thing.
Whose history?
The president,
Whose brand of history?
history is talked. We're going to have that discussion.
Because I'm going to teach a history of voting rights here in Florida. And the first thing I'm going to teach is the massacre in Ocoee.
Yeah, the Democrats did a really good job with that one.
Let's turn on the audio.
Proud
The-
to be an American. That number has now plummeted
The
to just
1860
39%.
Democrats.
In his pitch to get to the Oval Office, President Reagan called America the shining city on a hill, a beacon of
Not
hope
anymore.
and optimism.
So, in your closing statement tonight, please tell American voters why you are the person who can inspire this nation to a better day. These are 45 seconds, and we begin with Governor Burgum.
I understand why America's hurting. Biden's inflation is choking us.
Oh, Jesus.
I grew up in a small town. My dad died. Every job I had growing up was one where I took a shower at the end of the day, not at the beginning of the day. Our cities are less safe because of the fentanyl pouring into this country. Our economy is being crushed by Biden's energy policies, which are raising the cost of every product you buy, not just the gasoline at the pump. One thing that I'll do as president, I'll secure the border. I'll get this economy sprinting, not crawling like it is right now. And I would say that other thing is for sure, when I'm on a horseback in the Badlands of North Dakota, it looks like the horizon is just limitless. And when you can almost see beyond that horizon, you can see that this great country, our future is unlimited. But we've got to focus on innovation, not regulation. We've got to cut the red tape. We got to drive ourselves forward. The way we win the Cold War with China is by growing our economy and through innovation. And as president, I will bring out the best of America. I will improve every American life.
Well, we hope you're back on your horse soon, Governor.
Governor Hutchinson? Our nation is in trouble. And it's in trouble because of failed leadership. And the solution is not 4 more years of Joseph Biden. The solution is not 4 more years of Donald Trump. The solution is new leadership that can bring bold ideas to America and to bring out the best of America. A president's number one responsibility is to bring out the best of our people. That's what Ronald Reagan did. And he did it with optimism and hope for our country, with a consistent conservatism. That's exactly what I bring. As president, I'll bring out the best of America in terms of individual responsibility, building our economy, in terms of securing our border, enforcing the rule of law. I'll bring out the best of America in terms of our national character, our faith, and our hope for the future. Join in this fight, ACE2024.com.
Thank you. Senator Scott.
Hey, you got it in there.
Thank you.
He did it.
I was a disillusioned young man growing up in a single-parent household, mired in poverty. I wondered if the American dream was real for a kid like me. I can stand before you today and say the dream is alive, it is well, and it is healthy. I have the good fortune of a mom who works 16-hour days, making sure we have food on our tables. She taught me that if you're able-bodied in America, you work. If you take out a loan, you pay it back. You commit a violent crime, you go to jail. And if God made you a man, you play sports against men. I'm Tim Scott. I'm asking you for your vote. And if you're in Iowa, I'm asking you to caucus for me. You can go to votetimscott.com for more information or to make a contribution.
Nice. No bell either.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Martha. Look, everybody on this stage wants to be the next president of the United States. And the only way that's going to happen is if we beat Joe Biden. I'm the only one on this stage who's ever beaten a Democratic incumbent in an election. I did it in a deep blue state, being outspent 3-1. Beating a Democratic incumbent is not easy. The last Democratic incumbent president who was defeated was Jimmy Carter. And he was defeated by a conservative governor from a blue state who knew how to get results, who stood for the truth, who cared about accountability, and stood strong and hard against waste. Those are the very things that I did in my 8 years as governor of New Jersey, and it's exactly what I'll do as president of the United States. Believe me, the Democrats want some other nominee who's never beaten the Democratic incumbent. I'm the one who can win this race, and if you give me the chance, I will restore our country by winning it.
Thank you. Governor Haley.
Wasn't Reagan the Democrat?
Originally, yeah.
Several weeks ago, I dropped my husband, Michael,
Democrat
a combat
roots.
veteran from Afghanistan, off at 4 a.m. for another year-long deployment. I watched him and 230 soldiers pick up their 2 duffel bags of belongings, to go to a country they'd never been, all in the name of protecting America. If they are willing to protect us from there, we should be willing to fight for America here. I will beat Joe Biden, and he knows that. I will strengthen our economy, and we'll bring this inflation down. We will put transparency in the classroom. We will secure our borders. We will have the backs of our law enforcement, and we will make sure we have a strong national security. And once again, we will make sure we have an America that is strong and proud. We have a country to save. Join us. Go to NikkiHaley.com, and let's get it done.
Uninspiring. Inspire us. There we go.
Thank you very much.
Bring it home for mother.
It's an honor to be here. Joe Biden has weakened America at home and abroad. The disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, their war on energy, runaway spending that launched the worst inflation in 40 years, a crisis at our southern border, an assault on our values and liberties, and the American people have had enough. But I know we can bring it back. But different times call for different leadership. The Republican Party owes the American people the choice. Proven leadership at the national level that knows how to move a conservative agenda forward. We proved in the Trump-Pence years you can turn this country around faster than you can imagine. And I have faith we will again. Because I have faith in the American people. The good, decent, hardworking, faith-filled, idealistic people of this country. And I have faith that God is not done with America yet. And if we will renew our faith in one another and renew our faith in him who has ever guided this nation since we arrived on these
Hey, Vice President, I'd like to go to bed sometime tonight.
days for the greatest nation on earth are yet to come.
Thank you. Mr. Ramaswamy.
I was
Here we go.
born in 1985, and I grew up into a generation where we were
Born when I
taught
graduated.
to celebrate our diversity and our differences so much that we forgot all of the ways we are really just the same as Americans, bound by a common set of ideals that set this nation into motion in 1776. And this is our moment to revive those common ideals. God is real. There are two genders. Fossil fuels are a requirement for human prosperity. Reverse racism is racism. An open border is not a border. Parents determine the education of their children. The nuclear family is the greatest form of governance known to man. Capitalism lifts us up from poverty. There are three branches of government, not four. And the U.S. Constitution, it is the strongest guarantor of freedom in human history. That is what won us the American Revolution. That is what will win us the revolution of 2024. Thanks for letting me introduce myself tonight. Thank you.
Governor DeSantis. Governor?
Speak. This is our time for choosing. We will send Joe Biden back to his basement, and we will reverse the decline of this country.
He's
I'm a
waiting for his
blue-collar kid. I
batteries
work
to
minimum
recharge.
wage jobs to be able to make ends meet. I understand the importance of the American dream, and I know how that slipped away from so many millions of Americans. Will restore it. I'm a veteran who served in Iraq. I know what it means to put service above self. I'm also a dad and a husband to 6'5" and 3-year-old. I understand the importance of protecting parents' rights and the well-being of our children. In Florida, we showed it could be done. I made promises and I delivered on all of those promises. 2024 is make or break.
Yeah,
We're
they're
not
all
getting a
in court.
mulligan, no excuses. I will get the job done. And as your president, I will not let you down. God bless you all.
Well, we want to say
Not
thank you.
inspiring.
Thank you to all the candidates on the stage tonight, and thank you to Milwaukee.
Thank you, everybody. We will see you on the campaign trail from debates to primaries to the general election and the conventions before that. Thanks for joining us. Sean Hannity from the Spin Room starts right now.
Take it away, Sean.
Take it away, Sean.
Well, thanks.
Oh, Big David. Take it away, us.
Oh boy, well,
my
D-Mac
goodness.
clearly stood out.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
you know, Ron didn't have the night that he should have had. They talked around him, but when he did get the chance to speak, he stuck to his usual talking points. A lot of anger, no inspiration. Um, Chrissy, Pence, and Vivek dominated. Um, I'd love to
Let's
see
go.
all three of them again.
Nikki.
Yeah, since we have to do this, since we have to do our podcast tomorrow, let's go one by one though. Let's go quick through, like Asa. Asa Hutchinson had very little time, but what did you think? How did he do?
Unimpressed. I like
Asa,
Asa personally, but unimpressive.
okay.
Yeah,
Kellen?
I would kind of agree. Unimpressive, and he had, I mean, he was governor of Arkansas, and the policy he does there is a reflection of him. But man, every response did not need to begin with Arkansas. You
Yeah.
know,
Well, I mean,
30-90.
you got Huckabee from
Yeah.
Arkansas. You got Clinton from Arkansas. I'm so Arkansas out. I don't know. Yeah, Asa's a great guy. I know that Congressman Micah, had a good relationship with him when they worked when they worked together. But what I did like about it was that he dug into that Ronald Reagan secretary time that he had. So,
Mhm.
personally, uh,
Yeah.
probably dropping out. Probably won't have enough money for the next debate.
Mhm.
Now let's go to North Dakota. I'll start
Yeah.
that one. I thought he
Whatever
did
his
very
name is.
well. He did
Yeah.
very well, but
Yeah.
it's not memorable. There was nothing that's kicked ass and said, "I will stand up for you and fight for you."
Yeah.
So great
Well,
answers, but I just don't think he did it well.
yeah, and not to mention, I mean, above all that as well, he's a kind of he's kind of selling himself as a very niche candidate, talking about nothing but small town, talking about the horse, talking about he didn't have a broad appeal. I mean, his answers were good, but he needed to, I think, pull himself out of his small town for this. Because while small towns are extremely important, they're not the majority.
Hey, but we
So
know the
that's a
small
tough.
town. We know the small town song, don't we?
God, nature town.
Yeah, I really don't have anything to say about him. Unimpressed, uninspired, disconnect. Next.
Okay, we got to go to the other side stage again. Now let's. That would be Chris Christie.
Yep, Chris
Christie
Christie.
gets to be next.
Kellen.
Go ahead.
He definitely got the most boos. So if he wanted to win, good for him, I guess. If he didn't want to win, good for him. He had it. He was on and off. There was half the
Yeah.
time when like it was ace in the hole. Where I mean, especially this closing remark, he had a very strong closing remark. Like, I mean, not that I think it might have been the strongest along with Vivek's, and he did do a good job actually debating with other people, which is more than multiple of the other candidates can say, more than DeSantis, more than Asa, more than North Dakota. He did well, but I don't think, just given how big in the Trump fan base is and how much of his campaign is staked on going after Donald Trump, there's no way he gets the nomination, even if he performs well.
Okay, David.
There were points where I I was excited about what Chrissy was saying, and then the banter back and forth. He just kind of lost me there, and you know, Chrissy wasn't all that popular towards the end of his administration,
Oh,
uh,
that's true.
with especially with liberals. Yeah, did he qualify for the next round of debates just by performance? Yeah, yeah. But I want to know more about why he thinks he's better than he was 8 years ago when he sought the nomination.
Hey, this is a guy who look. I sit here and I say this is a guy that endorsed Donald Trump just because he didn't want, he hated Marco Rubio. So, you
Yeah.
know, we call him a beached whale, and I'm not talking about his weight, but This is a guy that during COVID decides to lock everybody down in New Jersey and go to the beach. Okay, look, hypocrisy. You know how I feel about it. Listen, his answers were good when he was on script, but when he had to actually think on his own, he was a disaster. Now we'll move over to Tim Scott. I'll leave this one. Tim Scott, loved the man to death. This was just the same rhetoric, though. I mean, I love the fact that you were born and raised in poverty to a single mother. That works. That works, but we know that already. So let's go to something else. And I think he has a lot of hidden talents in there. He has a lot of things he could have said. Just I was disappointed because I was expecting more from him. David?
He met my expectations, and my expectations of Tim Scott were incredibly low, because of the fact that he, as a Republican candidate, he needed to be more appealing to, at least for me, to beyond the Republican Party. He does have to get past the Republican primary, so I get it, yes, but however, if he's going to be likable or electable, enough of the storytelling. We've heard it so many times. It's getting old. He's not. He's not unique. That story is not unique anymore. And he has to explain why he and Senator Booker could not come up with criminal justice reform. Right? He's got an answer to that.
Yeah.
I don't think he had a chance for that one. But go ahead, Kellen. Let's see how you thought of
two things. Onto the storytelling thing. That was not exclusive to Scott in this debate. He was not the only one who got mired in storytelling. Of course, we haven't reached the storyteller himself yet, but there is strength and clarity in your words. I think that's what makes Vivek so attractive to so many voters.
When I'm talking about Vivek, you got to talk about Scott.
I know. I'm. Oh, this is about Scott. Don't you worry.
It's only talking about Scott.
Oh, don't you worry.
Go ahead.
But Scott, and I noticed this. I mean, he wasn't the only one, but I noticed this more prevalently with him than any other candidate, waffling around questions, taking ages to say yes or no.
Yeah.
The debate is the time to make a first impression of voters. Nuance is something in of its own, but it cannot take. But if you're planning on selling yourself, it came across as very weak.
Yeah.
From that perspective.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, well, guess who gets to lead this one? Kellen, you're going straight to the vice president.
Oh, yeah. The storyteller. Scott told a lot of stories, nothing on Pence. I think where Pence messed himself up the most was his constant need to interrupt and argue with everybody the entire way through. There is strength in debate and in nuance in discussing out issues, but shouting people over to many voters will just be immature. And I don't think he will get much leeway. A lot of policy, it went back to him talking about things he did rather than what he's going to do. And while record is important, it's not enough, I don't think.
David?
You
gotta love that.
I mean, Pence put me to sleep a couple of times. I'm tired of hearing the prophetizing, whatever you want to call it, the guy this. At one point I started praying with him. He's trying to distance himself from the Trump administration. You can't do that. I just don't have anything for Pence. He wasn't convincing that he will do anything different than what he's done in the past.
Well, David, that you make a great point there, and all I can say is this can be the simplest answer. Al Gore. Let's move on.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's go to
Nikki
we get to
Haley.
Nikki Haley. Okay, David gets to start this one.
I think Nikki started off really good. She had some screen time and she was making some sense, talking more and more about policy. There was a point where she addressed the abortion issue and the humanity of it all. And she, addressed, Pence and the others about the cruelty of a 6-week ban. Um, and then she got lost in the crowd. Um, it's good to hear her views. I think she was wrong on some things, but hey, I'm not a conservative, so.
You are a Democrat, so let's make sure that everybody knows
But
that
I
you're not
think
agree with her.
I think for the most part, she held her own.
Listen, guys, I'm going. I have the biggest crush on Nikki uh, because she's the commander uh, in so many ways. I mean, she has got more balls than most of the men on that stage.
Yes, she did show some.
She called it like it is.
Early.
She held the party accountable.
Yeah.
She did lose it in some spots where but her compassion for people, her compassion for, hey, abortion is an issue that we can't just be one-sided on. I think she took a really strong position. So I'm going to give Nikki like really high grade here because a woman against all those men can have really solid answers. I was impressed.
She was okay.
I was pretty impressed too. Strength through clarity. Again, she got lost a couple times, but when she was hitting, and she was hitting it very abundantly clear. A lot of the candidates, we'd ask lingering questions after. So wait, is that a yes or a no? Haley, you never had to actually fill in that gap for yourself. And strength and clarity, I'm definitely excited to see how she pulls out in the next debate because I think she will qualify without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she had one of the better showings.
I'm gonna throw a monkey wrench in because we go to Vivek next. But let's say since we are going to talk about Vivek, who had the best Vivek? Got the best punch into Vivek tonight.
Nikki.
Nikki.
Easily Haley.
Yeah.
Nikki Haley. I think she hit him with that. You have absolutely no foreign policy.
Yeah.
And it shows.
Just the best hit. So, David, it's you. Tell us about your man.
Your
generation.
Yeah. Technically, he's not in my generation, but
he's
younger.
Still. The young.
Yeah, I'm a little baby. I know, guys. Hammer at home.
Let's just remind everybody that he's 3 years older than the minimum age to be president of the United States.
Vivek definitely has showmanship. He's got flair, and I think and no wonder he's doing as well as he is, despite all the challenges he's going to face as a newcomer. No wonder. On the other hand, every single interrupting match, except for I think one, revolved around Vivek. He came across as young in not always in the good way, but as in the bullish, argumentative way sometimes. I think at the end, when he had his cold moments and he wasn't talking to other people. Yeah, no, he's a great speaker and all. He really is. I think the concern that will come up is, will he get the moderates? That's going to be his biggest hurdle to overcome. Because on some issues, sure, but on other issues, it's a little bit more challenging because of how strong a positions he takes on everything.
Yeah, but I think he takes strong positions where even liberals would agree. There are a lot of people that aren't talking about this. There's a man and a woman. There's a whole bunch of Democrats I know that are out of their mind about identity. These pronouns and stuff. So the fact that he hits those points, yeah, he's probably a little too conservative on some of his issues, but he really truly is hitting those. It's like music, right? He's hitting those things, but he never. Every time he took a punch at somebody, like you were saying, he missed. But every time they punched at him, they went right over his head. So it's almost like watching a boxing match where everybody's just swinging and nobody was hitting until Nikki came in and she pounded him with that one question. So David, it's on you. This is I can't wait to hear your opinion on this man.
Vivek came out strong. He was consistent. He was firm in his position. He was clear in his position. And he showed that he will fight for the nomination. He will fight to be the vice presidential pick to a Trump ticket.
He's already picked that one. Go ahead, Dave. I shouldn't have.
So I believe that Vivek had the strongest um, evening out of all the candidates. He did not back down. He had a lot of screen time. He was memorable. He was inspirational. If I was a conservative, I would be inspired. His closing statement would have inspired me to give him, a second look. That's all I have to say. Yeah.
So let me ask a question to both of you because I think it's a very good point. You definitely knew that they were afraid of him.
Yes. Oh, no
and
doubt.
And that way I think was very powerful. That's why he got all that face time. I think if they had left him alone, they probably would have been better off.
Right.
But now let's see. It is actually it's my turn to start. I hate to start with this one. I think the governor he was well practiced, but he didn't perform as well as he should have. When you're the front runner and you're center stage, you don't sit there and let everybody fight around you without stopping the argument and being the candidate that controls things, like being the man that could have stood up and said, "Look, enough is enough. Let's get back on focus." If he had done that instead of the moderators having to go through the stuff they did, he could have done a lot better. He had his points well rehearsed, but he only did his rehearsed. He did not do anything that was outside of what was expected.
And that's kind of the main point I had. I mean, first off, he already has the strongest lead. Got to capitalize on it, not be complacent with it. But it is important when you're in these debates to convey your platform to the voters, say what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, why you're going to do it. But the other half is the debate. How do you deal with others? I mean, the president does foreign policy. How do they handle argument? How will they, when people criticize them, how will they get around it? What's their game plan? There is strength in that debate, that discussion. And to just disengage himself was a huge misstep, I think. And I mean,
how many times did I say, "Where's Ron? Where's Ron?" He's supposed to be the.
I think like 6.
Right, and I agree with both of you. He needs to come in there as the alpha. And
he got stunned by millennial.
Vivek stole that right off the bat, and DeSantis stayed in his silo, and he did not diverge from his silo, from his script, and he came off as just that one caricature of the angry conservative that's going to stop everything and end everything and restrict everything, and Democrats the boogeyman. And it was difficult for him to stray from that trope.
Okay, well we're almost at 2.5 hours now. I think it's been, we thank the audience that has stayed with us. I mean, we've had quite a few viewers, and we appreciate your viewing.
Thank you.
Our final
Thank you.
words.
Thanks,
we're
Mom.
We're gonna have our final. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So we're gonna have our final words. The debate itself, I give it an 8. I tell Fox that they totally lost control.
Yeah.
They they lost control. So the best I could say is this is an 8, and we should eliminate at least 4 candidates from this debate.
Kellen? Uh-oh.
Kellen just froze. That's why I got quiet.
Oh, okay. I'll give it for entertainment value, I give it an 8. For getting to know the candidates, I give it an 8. The Fox team kind of lost control. Some of the questions were silly, so I give that a 5. Overall, a solid 7. It helped. It definitely helped, and it was good for America. I'm looking forward to doing this again. We'll advertise it. We'll let people know, market that we're going to do this, and it's been a while since we did something like this, so this was good.
David, I had a good time. I'm glad you suggested this. Our audience has got to be absolutely thrilled that they had a chance to. If they don't have cable, they could watch it with us. So,
Exactly.
You can't make this shit up.
You can't.
This was humorous. This was fun. I thank you for the invitation. So like, subscribe, and thank you, John, for all the hard work you were doing backstage.
Yes, John, our producer. Thank you. We appreciate it.
And tomorrow,
we've got content coming up this week, so tune in.
So tomorrow will be a great day, and we'll have some great topics for you. And you'll meet some new interns. Take care.